Yo, what up? It's me, your boy. Hi, guys. Hello. Hello. We did it. We're here. Probably. Allegedly. It's less Mexico, Hollywood, Mexico outside today. So that's starting to clear up. So everybody was curious about why the sun was red in Northern Ontario and why it looked like a hellscape. It's because there's some really bad fires going on in Northern Ontario, Thunder Bay area. I'm okay where I am. The weather can, like, it's cooled down because of that. The air quality is still bad, but, you know, you win some, you lose some. I have seen people upset about the government, both at Mark Carney and at Doug Ford, about these fires and what's going on with them. And so Thunder Bay is considered Northern Ontario, so there's Northern Ontario and Southern Ontario. For anybody who's not, For anybody who's not in the area, and politically, the Conservatives have been in charge of the provincial government of Ontario for ever. It feels like forever. I'd have to look at the actual number to know how long it actually has been, but it's been a long time. And Doug Ford has consistently been cutting firefighting resources and money in the last couple of years. The reason I point this out and talk about this just a little bit is because the reason Doug Ford gets, or why the Tories or why the Conservatives have been in charge of Ontario for so long, is mostly because of rural Northern Ontario. Generally, they do not win places like seats in Toronto, right? So now the northern part of Ontario is on fucking fire. Now, I want to be clear, Northern Ontario is gorgeous and beautiful, and I adore Northern Ontario, but I really do hope that everybody's okay, and I really do hope that with how bad these fires are and how bad climate change is, I really hope this is, like, not too late of a wake-up call to get either Doug Ford to fucking do something or vote him the fuck out and vote in somebody who will do something. So, alas, I will get off my soapbox about that. And don't at me about politicizing tragedies. Shut the fuck up, I don't care. Athens has been watching for 120 consecutive streams. Holy shit, thank you very much, greatly appreciated. Intrigued said that there were ashes falling, yep. Jason said 190 armored support vehicles by General Dynamics Land Systems Canada just announced $2 billion over 4 years. Yeah, there's the military spending and the amount of money going in and out of Canada is looking like it's heading in a really good direction. There's also an announcement today, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we're stuck with Doug for like another 4 years. I know, don't do this to me. I know, the struggle. Another thing that was announced, I believe today or recently, is that there is... So we talked about the pipeline yesterday, and it came up, and it's going to be a thing that keeps coming up. And we talked about piping to Australia, and we talked about Japan. Apparently Japan and Canada have made quite the deal that they're talking about getting, circumventing, of course, the United States, and setting up refineries in Japan, so Japan can have Alberta oil. And just for frame of reference, I'm just gonna show you guys the oil map again, just for frame of reference. This is U.S. oil imports by country in 2026. This is Canada at 1.7 billion barrels. Right? And like, it is not comparable to fucking anybody. And Japan, it does not get enough. And Japan is really, really struggling with what Donald Trump and the United States are doing with the Strait and Iran. So they're looking for alternatives that will circumvent the United States and, you know, a country that's a little bit more stable and actually sticks to its commitments. So they're looking at piping that out and enabling that to go through BC. Now, there's also an additional factor to this, and it is to build another pipeline. It sounds like Mark Carney is making a deal that says, hey, listen, I'm going to let you build another pipeline, but you have to do it under these conditions. And these conditions mean massive, massive CO2 reduction. By massive CO2 reduction, I mean like pulling CO2 out of the air. So the oil company that is putting the carbon into the air is going to be obligated to pull it out. And if this agreement goes through, then it's going to be the largest, one of the largest, if not the largest CO2 reduction projects in the globe. Like ever, that there's ever been. So if that ends up happening, it'll be pretty fascinating one way or another, regardless of how you feel about it from a major global impact, success or not, is we'll see how it goes. Just reduce the number to the US and increase the number to Japan. That's not quite how that works, but yes. But the oil industries in Alberta, for example, want to pump out more oil. And Carney is basically making them a deal that says, okay, listen, you can do that, but if you do so, you have to extract X amount of CO2 to balance out the amount that you're putting out. So that's, yeah, we'll see how the deal ends up totally being structured. This is just what has been proposed. So if it goes through, right? So yeah, and it shifts the CO2 reduction market from a cost to a way to profit. So that's a big change. We'll see what it does. I don't know for sure what's going to happen. This is, like I said, this is pretty early on in the announcement, so we don't really know how long that's going to take, about whether or not how they're going to do it. Jason is correct. Sending compressed CO2 into the crust. Yep, that's the plan. That's what it looks like. So we'll see. I'm tentatively optimistic, but, you know, I don't like to commit to these types of things because who the fuck knows? I put a beer in the fridge, so we're ready to go on that. Update on my plants. I moved my tomato plants back outside. It is now cool enough for them and the air quality isn't so bad that I feel like they're gonna get choked out. So I think they'll be okay. If it is successful, it's going to set a global standard. Like, if it is successful and they go through with it and it works, then what you're probably going to see is you're going to see Europe match. Europe will do the same thing. And I don't see why they wouldn't. You know what I mean? I forgot to mention yesterday that the Paris Accords is a big deal. Okay. Think this will choke me out? No, when I was moving my plants back outside, I was wearing a mask. I got this cute little fabric mask when I traveled to Kansas. Charla gave it to me. It says fuck off on it. But it's like cute and flowery. Alright. Are we ready? Are we ready to dive back into this bozo bullshit? Because, like, that's all this is. This is bozo bullshit. PPBB, am I right? If only there was an easier way to separate carbon and lock it away. Some kind of technology you could put in the ground and would take carbon from the air. You say that, but all of our trees are on fucking fire right now. So that's trees are a stopgap. I believe restoring coral reefs will be one of the biggest projects we can do and work on in restoring the oceans. If we can do stuff like that, that'll be a big, big change. Smoky as fuck out here? Yeah, it do be like that. Alright, are we ready? Those COVID masks still have some use. I use mine. I use mine all the time. I like having my mask on at the grocery store. People are disgusting. I hate humans. Humans are gross. I found out who gave me this little Bulbasaur, by the way. It was Dapper. It was Dapper Dinosaur. He sent it to me for my birthday. So thank you. Deep sequestering for years and using to extract more oil from wells that are diminishing. Yep. Yep. Okay. Let's get into this. Let's talk about let's get through this shit. Fuck this. Fuck this guy. I should put my headphones on, shouldn't I? Oh, and away we go. When we last left our heroes, they were bullshitting about bills, and if you're curious, I will be doing a mega stream in regards to the bills that he's suggesting. So we're gonna skip, like, you're not gonna see me address this particular part right now because it's going to get addressed in both a mega video and I will cut it down into more reasonable chunks later, so you don't have to get totally steamrolled if you don't want to. So here's a link to that if you're interested. Feel free to hit the notification on that for later. So, shall we? Yes, we shall. No more procrastinating. Let's go. Tell me about this bullshit that we're skipping.
What exists in any other democratic country. And what you're seeing is a large-scale surveillance and censorship apparatus that the Liberals have put together with C9, which bans certain Bible verses that the government considers to be politically incorrect, with the old C11, which is the Online Streaming Act, which allows the government to manipulate algorithms to promote content it wants you to see and demote other content it does not want you to see. With C22, which basically turns giant tech companies into surveillance enterprises for the government.
Sorry, I was just skimming this as it was going by, and the thing that stuck out to me was Bill C-22 promises to help law enforcement and the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, or the CSIS, obtain digital information during investigations, something the security community has been pushing for since the late 90s. Could be a bit higher. Yeah, I got you. We'll go to 60.
Enterprises for the government, to numerous other bills that they've brought forward that, for C-18, for example. C-18 makes it so that a lot of independent media outlets can't even get on Instagram and Facebook anymore. And we're the only place in the world where that's the case, or the only democracy in the world where that's the case. So we're fighting for free speech. I'm a free speech champion. I believe.
Can we get an X to doubt on him being a free speech champion in the chat, please? Can we get X to doubt? I don't. Smells like bullshit. So yeah, that's his whole spiel on the bills. But come and join me on Tuesday. We'll actually go through the bills and see what they actually say. I assure you, it's going to be me falling into madness as we read.
Believe that people should be able to decide what they think. They should be allowed to think thoughts that I don't agree with, that the government finds outrageous, and that is the only way free speech. It is the only way speech actually matters if you're allowed to say things that the government does not want you to say. Otherwise,
what?
Okay, there's no such thing as free speech. So we need to throw open the curtains and let the sunshine in.
I couldn't agree more. I am as close to...
I remind you that we did read Bill C-9, and Bill C-9 was about hate speech, because hate speech is limited. Or is he there's a difference between being, like, pro-free speech and being a free speech absolutist. Does Pierre Poilievre think that is he a free speech absolutist? Because for somebody who limits the questions that the media is allowed to ask him during press conferences, I feel like maybe he is not a free speech absolutist. Or maybe he might be a hypocrite.
To a free speech absolutist as you can get.
Hey, what did I just say? Drink for prediction. I mean, is this guy? I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy, so I'm not here to criticize him. His questions seem a little softball-y, but, whatever.
I've come out against the denialist bill that was put forward. I've interviewed individuals like Frances Widdowson about her thoughts on what happened with the Kamloops 215 story. I don't necessarily agree with her, but we need to be able to have disagreements, debates, and that's what makes our country stronger. And then people who come out about the
There's a big difference between having a debate and shitposting on Twitter. Those are not the same thing. There's also a difference between being a paid propagandist by a enemy foreign nation, like Russia, for example, that is paying people in your country or in another country to post bullshit pretending they're from your country to try to undermine your democracy. That's interference. So, and I am willing to call Russia an enemy of Canada. Russia has hated Canada forever, and in their defense, they should hate us. We're little shits. We fuck with their stuff all the time. Like, this is not new. So, like, I don't mind that Russia doesn't like Canada. I don't think Russia should like Canada, and I don't think Canada should try to be liked by Russia. And, irascribable. Is that irascribble? Atlantic said, disagreements and debates work when the intention is to come to some sort of conclusion. That is not what the Conservative Party does. They berate and obfuscate and confuse to make it difficult to oppose them. This is a good point. A debate and a discussion requires honest interlocutors. And that's not what we have here, right? Denialism is not skepticism, right?
Indigenous kind of reconciliation industry, they're not wrong to say that there are a huge group of lobbyists, lawyers, and voices that want to make money off of them.
Many of them are not even Indigenous. They're people who are bureaucrats.
I will take this moment to remind everybody that when Pierre Poilievre went to go speak with Indigenous leaders at like a press conference, not only did he promise he was going to take questions and then dip out the back door and run away, but when he was speaking, the leaders of the Indigenous group stood up and turned around and put their backs to him for how much they dislike this motherfucker. So maybe... Oh, I would also like to remind you, one of the times we looked at what Pierre Poilievre was saying and what the Conservative Party was saying about what Indigenous groups were doing, it was... well, of course we're going to ask them and then do whatever we want to do anyway. Because they don't give a shit about Indigenous groups. And I would also like to point out that Alberta is currently the separatist movement in Alberta, which includes the Premier of Alberta, who is a Conservative, who is Danielle Smith, has been spitting in the face of the Indigenous groups and Indigenous peoples in that area as they try to claim land that doesn't belong to them to verify or to utilize in their separatist movement without giving two shits about what the Indigenous groups in those areas want. Is one of the reasons why, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly, one of the reasons why it was tossed out was because it didn't do its due diligence in reaching out and working with Indigenous groups.
Bureaucrats, lawyers, lobbyists who have nothing to do with the Indigenous communities, they're just showing up to make money off of both Indigenous people and Canadian and other Canadian taxpayers. Exactly. Which is not what the...
Yeah, how dare lawyers get paid to do their job? What a bunch of shills, am I right?
What Canadians think of when they imagine that we're doing reconciliation.
And I just want to briefly say, like, I think in this interview there may be people sitting...
So is he saying reconciliation is fake news? Is that what he's saying? It's just fake news corporate bullshit that has nobody's best interest at mind and is simply to make money for bigwigs and lawyers? And it's all just all just like a pony show? Okay. I mean, that doesn't seem to be the case. To me, maybe I'm ill-informed, I guess. PP would not listen to anyone. He has already said he would ignore First Nations with regards to pipeline and just go ahead. Yes, yep, that is exactly what I was referring to. You're 100% correct.
Reconciliation.
And I just want to briefly say, like, I think in this interview, there may be people sitting here waiting for me to ask you really aggressive, tough questions. I think people are already doing plenty of that. I think that there's already...
Okay, do I get to drink again for prediction? Because did I not say I think this guy's gonna softball him the whole time? Like, you can ask a hard question without being aggressive, right? Aggressive is more about tonality and approach, right? As opposed to, like, I can be more aggressive, but I'm saying something pleasant to you, like, hey, you're the best. That's aggressive. But I can say, hey, listen, you're kind of like a piece of shit, right? That's not me being, like, I might be being rude, but I'm not necessarily being aggressive. Yeah, he's so oppressed. He gets asked all these hard questions that he never answers and runs away from. I don't mind that this guy's gonna softball him. right? I don't mind that this guy's gonna, like, juggle his balls a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, he was on Joe Rogan. Did he get asked a single hard question when we watched him on Joe Rogan? No. He didn't get asked any fucking difficult questions. Of course he didn't. So, like, here we are with another softball fucking ball gargling to the surprise of nobody.
Already a lane for people trying to gotcha you, attack you, and I don't think that's productive to the types.
Asking a hard question does not mean it's a gotcha. Being aggressive does not mean that they're being unfair. Stop trying to put these things together. At least if you ask him a hard question, it'll be more. Yeah, Feline's got it right. Yeah, failing at a hard question might be expected, but failing at softball ones, yeah, the softball could. Yeah, he's so bad at answering questions.
Of conversations we need to be having as Canadians. I also strongly believe, and I was talking to your team before this.
Didn't this guy just say he was pro-debate and free speech and, like, as close to a free speech absolutist as you can get, and now he's crying about tough questions and aggressive language? My guy. Come on.
Your role, and people forget this, and I understand, but your role is to offer different policy solutions, different options for the government to be considering. You're supposed to be a government in waiting, demonstrating a different path forward. And so criticizing you when you don't have the power to enact law, create bills, and form decisions that will impact the country, it seems not a good use of my time or your time to be trying to find a question that's going to catch you. But I do want to...
What? I'm sorry, I need him to say that again. I need to listen to that whole thing all over again, because, like, that just fucking was absurd. Am I crazy? Hold on.
Reconciliation.
And I just want to briefly say, like, I think in this interview, there may be people sitting here waiting for me to ask you really aggressive, tough questions. I think people are already doing plenty of that. I think that there's already a lane for people trying to gotcha you, attack you. And I don't think that's productive to the types of conversations we need to be having as Canadians. I also strongly believe, and I was talking to your team before this, your role, and people forget this, and I understand, but your role is to offer different policy solutions, different options for the government to be considering. You're supposed to be a government in waiting, demonstrating a different path forward. And so criticizing you when you don't have the power to enact law, create bills, and form decisions that will impact the country, it seems not a good use of my time or your time to be trying to find a question that's going to catch you. But
you don't think it's productive to ask difficult questions to the leader of the Conservative Party and the opposition in what was a minority government that is now only a majority by, like, 1 or 2 seats? What does he think that the opposition can't propose policy? The opposition can absolutely propose policy and get that policy put through, provided they make a good enough argument and they convince the people on the floor to do so. What is this new situation of poor weak little Pierre Poilievre that has no government power? What? Hold on. Oh, what are the seat numbers? What's the Canada seat numbers? Hold on. Wait. Seats in the House of Commons. Okay, let me wait. I want to see. I don't want to see the vacant seats. This is what I'm looking for. Allocation by province. Oh, this is the allocation. 343 seats since 2025. Okay, Ontario has 122 seats, Quebec has 78 seats, blah, 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 and they are currently held by whomst? Current party standings. There we go. Loading. Loading. He just leaves out that Pierre never answered any hard questions and starts spouting slogans and propaganda. Yeah. It's not entirely wrong, but way off base. You can't criticize PP for bad government policies, but you can definitely criticize their proposed policies. Yeah, and you can still criticize him a little bit for the policies that pass, because as the opposition, if it is really that bad and Canadians don't want it, then it is part of his job to oppose those things effectively. And if he's not being effective at opposing the things that you don't want, then he's not doing his job very well, is he? And then on the other hand, you have this other situation, right? You have this other issue where what policy are we picking on right now? Because, like, oh, poor Pierre Poilievre is getting, like, hard picked on. How? Wasn't he claiming recently that all of the things that the Liberal government were doing was his ideas? Like, so now it's just like, yeah, take more of my ideas, and he just cries foul constantly. Has this man ever celebrated a win properly, or is he just constantly complaining about how much of a fucking martyr he is? So yeah, here's the layout, right? In the House of Commons. So, like, it's grand total. Yeah, there's the total. So, like, the Liberals are not ahead by a whole ton. Like, look at how close some of these are. Right? Saskatchewan and Alberta are both considerably blue, right? So, like, some of these are really close. This is the House, right? These are the seats. So, like, to try to pretend that Conservatives have no party, like, have no power, the Conservatives could absolutely get a handful of Liberals to agree with them and vote against something that their own party is doing. They could get NDP to agree with them and vote against something that the Liberal Party is doing. So he can enact and change policy. He is in a position to do so. And it's right to criticize him when he doesn't do a good job. Then again, I get the feeling that people, like, I get the feeling that this guy and people of this ilk, I guess, have this idea that they don't understand what the opposition's job actually is. It is not the opposition's job to oppose literally everything and prevent anything from happening that the other side proposes. That's not its job. If you agree on something and it moves things forward in a way that your caucus agrees with, or the way that the people you represent agree with, then you should move forward with it and work together. It has nothing to do with your party lines at that point. It has to do with what the Canadian people want. So, like, what are you fucking talking about? What do you mean? It's not your job to just prevent government from functioning, which seems to be what you're implying. Anyway, that was really stupid. That was really dumb, and I had to listen to it. I almost feel like I need to listen again for how absurd what he just said was, but that's absurd.
But I do want to ask, Canada feels more deeply divided now, regionally, really? Politically, economically, and culturally. How on earth would you go about bringing this country back together?
Do you feel like that? Hey, people out there, whether you're from Canada or not, does Canada seem divided right now? To you? Do you think Canada seems divided? I don't feel that way. I mean, admittedly, that is my feeling, but he's talking about feelings. Canada feels divided. Does Canada feel divided? We seem to be pretty much all on the same page, chugging forward pretty hard. I will remind you that Mark Carney had an over 80% approval rating for his party to become party leader, and that he has over 60% approval rating in Canada after flipping the polls, and that Canadians were pretty united at roughly 90% initially to say fuck Donald Trump in the United States and this 51st state bullshit. I've never seen Canadians more united. I don't know what he's talking about. Does this guy have examples? I mean, I guess you could say that people were pretty divided about Justin Trudeau. Sure, but that was a year and time ago at this point. Not divided in a way I would notice, right? Like, I guess you could talk about the Alberta separatists, but that they're not unique. They're not special, you know what I mean? Like, there was a huge separatist movement that had way better chance of happening and had way better arguments for doing so when Quebec was doing its separatist movement. And the Quebec separatists have settled down since post Jean Chrétien, right? And since some of those rulings in the 90s. And so, like, even that is still, like, and even there was a joke when Trump pissed off all of Canada. The joke was, wow, he pissed off the Canadians so much that even the Quebecers are claiming to be Canadian. Like, that was a joke. Like, it was already on the downswing. And so, just because Trump has enabled, like, I don't know what, 50 separatists in Alberta, there's tens of them, guys. There's so many of them. They're not. And they're a joke, and they don't know what they're doing, and they have no clue what they're doing. They've got nothing, especially compared to Quebec. And Quebec actually had, like, reasoning and logic and law that they were citing, as opposed to the Albertans who were just flailing around being like, no, we're gonna be our own country, we're gonna join the United States because we want more oil. This is not all Albertans, by the way. I'm explicitly talking specifically about the separatists, who don't even have a majority in their own, like, they don't even have remotely close to a majority. Like, it's like the if you actually poll Albertans and you take the numbers on the left and on the right and you put them together, the numbers are like 49. Like, they're doing this. And that's just for provincial leadership, right? So, like, anyway, I'm getting off track. Who cares? This is stupid. The country does not seem divided. There does seem to be a push on social media that has made the Alberta separatist movement look bigger than it is, if you actually look at the numbers and you actually look at their turnout rates. Let alone the law. They don't have a chance.
I believe that the reason that we're divided is because the government is trying to control too much.
Oh, really? I thought there was a big thing about all these bills that had passed about censorship and that that people should be allowed to do things that the government shouldn't interfere in, and you guys were free speech absolutists, and now you're gonna come in here and try to fucking talk about how, like, come on.
Too much of the economy, too much of our speech, too much of our thoughts. And when that happens, so control is a zero-sum game.
What?
If one person has more control, someone else has to have less, because there's only a finite amount, 100%. So obviously people have to fight over control.
Sorry, my philosophy brain is ticking on, when you say control, what do you mean? Like, what are you're saying control is 100% of the pie that is being divvied up for each individual versus how much control they have over their life versus how much control the government has over their life? And you're saying the government has more control over an individual's life right now than the individual? And you think that's real? Like, that's... Fucking what? How? Because there are speed limits? Like, in what way? What are you talking about?
And that's divisive. Freedom is not finite, and therefore people, if one person gets more...
Freedom is not finite? What?
Finite, and therefore people, if one person gets more freedom, that doesn't mean someone else gets less.
It does if they're also fighting for control and are oppressing the other group and are using that freedom and privilege to oppress the other group. And Athens has a good point. Freedom is conditional. Yes. Freedom is absolutely conditional. It's been conditional for a very, very long time. Fucking, for somebody who is apparently as close to a free speech absolutist that you can get, you sure don't know how words work.
Both get more. It's the irony, right? So, like,
that's not irony.
If your neighbor gets freedom of speech, you don't lose freedom of speech, you gain it as well at the same time. If you have a Jewish neighbor...
If your neighbor is allowed to swing around a swastika, you get freedom. Didn't you know?
Who gets freedom of religion, it doesn't mean you, as a, Christian, I don't know your religion, but me as a Christian, loses freedom of speech. I get the freedom as well. So one person's freedom is another person's freedom. That's why people don't fight over freedom, they fight for freedom. And...
This is so asinine. This is so saying nothing. I would like to remind you guys that the question was, Canada seems divided. What would you do about that? Oh my god, this is so word salad.
No, that's very theoretical, so let me get down to specifics.
That's not... You just said it wasn't theoretical. That's not... That's not what the word theoretical means. Alright, vote in the chat. What word do you think he meant? Because it wasn't theoretical. What word do you think he meant to say? Because it definitely was not theoretical. There's no way he meant to say theoretical. Good lord.
The government concentrates all the money in Ottawa. Then everybody has to go to Ottawa and fight for a bigger share.
That's not how it works.
If the government instead disperses economic decisions through a free enterprise system, then you no longer have to fight for a bigger share of the pie. You go out and create more because no one's holding you back. You start a business.
It's not how any of this works.
Your business does great. That doesn't stop the other business in the other side of the country from starting up and doing even better. You're both creating a value for your customers and your workers with which they voluntarily choose to participate.
Right now, if you took this literally, he's saying that industry shouldn't have to pay federal taxes. So, yeah, Atlantic's jumped ahead of me there, yeah. Yeah, just give the money to corporations. Socialism for capitalists.
Buyers and as employees, and therefore everyone is getting better off in a free market system. So I think if the government would...
Okay, how do you define that everyone is better off because these two industries on opposite sides of the country are benefiting? How are the people who live in between those areas benefiting from that? They're not. They're not. How do you guarantee that the money that is being made by those industries is going toward their workers? Right? Like what? How do you guarantee that people are going to have like healthcare and insurance and dental and eye care and hygiene stuff, and that the water is going to stay turned on and functional and useful and good, and the local ecology is going to be okay to ensure that where you live stays safe? How are you going to do any of that? You're not. You can't guarantee that. The Republicans' trickle-down economy, they still waiting for that trickle-down to happen. It's been more than 50 years. Yeah, trickle-down economics doesn't work. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Friendly faces, friendly faces. I'm gonna go get my beer in a minute.
But to get out of people's hair, leave people alone. Mind its own damn business. If I were starting a political party...
Okay, then what is the government's job, do you think, Pierre? If the government's job isn't to regulate corporations, to ensure the safety of its citizens and the what's the word I'm looking for? And the prosperity of its citizens. What is the point of the government? This is just this is libertarian. This is reminding me of when I spoke to Adam Kokesh when Adam Kokesh was running for president. Well, okay, so how are you gonna have police, my guy? Like, how's any of this gonna work? How do you ensure that people have electricity? Oh, you don't.
Your own damn business party. Then people would be able to get along a lot better. You know, it's
would
like
they?
You're in a household and everybody's always in each other's business and everyone's hair. Then you'll be fighting like cats and dogs.
This is very sad when you remember that he just a minute ago was asked a question what his family thought that they were sacrificing for his political career, and he proceeded to do nothing but talk about himself and never answer that question with zero consideration for them whatsoever. The whole point of living together and being a family is that you are in each other's hair.
Dogs. Whereas if you live in a household where people sort of, you know, clean up their own room, take care of their own affairs and live their own lives and work together voluntarily, then everyone in the household lives in harmony. That's the kind of country we need to have to unite.
That is not how a family functions at all. That especially when there are children involved, and you can't pretend there are not children in a country. What? This is an insane metaphor or analogy that makes no fucking sense. We need weed. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The smoke has actually cleared up where I'm at. Looks like you're gonna have another couple hours of it before it's gonna blow over your area. Running a country like a business, now he's saying he wants to run it like a family, but he wants to run it as like a socialist. He wants to run it as a socialism for capitalists, but then also as like a wholly negligent individual family style. Like he's talking about like a family, like they're roommates. And even that, you still can't not work together when you have roommates, as somebody who has roommates. That's not how it works. There are still common areas that need to be tended to. Right? Like, if you have a roommate, right, and that roommate uses the kitchen because they need to, they use the bathroom because they need to, they use these common areas, the living room or whatever, they use the front door, right? And then they only take care of their own bedroom. Do you know what's going to happen to the common area? What's going to happen to the living room and the bathroom if nobody is taking care and cleaning it because it's not their space, it's not their room? If I clean the bathroom in my house and I have two roommates, am I getting in their hair and getting in their business by cleaning the bathroom? The room will clean itself. Oh, yes. Naturally. Naturally, of course, the room will clean itself. He's never had a roommate from hell. Well, he doesn't have roommates. He neglects his family and leaves them to go fuck around and spend taxpayer money fucking around doing stuff like this. What is PP smoking today? Fuck if I know, man. He needs to be, you know, if he should start a business and it should be selling whatever the fuck he's on. It's probably illegal.
Through freedom rather than dividing through control.
One of the things I did that was a bit unique to this interview is I reached out to some of my peers to find out what their questions were for you.
Right.
Because I knew that I was going to have my own lens and other people are going to have theirs. This comes from a law professor that I'm a huge fan of. President Trump's political and economic attacks on Canada have changed the political landscape here. How do you campaign for conservative principles when many Canadians are looking unfavorably at conservatism in the US?
All right. Before Poilievre answers this question, I'm going to point out a flaw in this question. You can't ask Pierre Poilievre about conservatism because he's not a traditional conservative. He won't know the answer. Simple as that. The political spectrum, the Overton window has been so dragged so far to the right, and the coalition of the Conservative Party in Canada being basically co-opted by right-wing extremists means that he is not arguing for conservative principles. The leader of the, let me be clear, the leader of the Conservative Party is not leading with conservative principles in mind. He's leading with authoritarian populist ideals. That's the direction he's going in. And with a sprinkle of nationalism, he's pulled back on the nationalism a little bit because, it's embarrassing and not doing very well it's just not the way Canadians think so much. So it's not doing so good. So, my guy, you're asking this question. I think this is a malformed question. I feel like I think it's a great idea to compare and contrast traditional conservative policy and values and applying them to current day conservatives and Republicans in the United States is a fantastic idea. I think that's great. You should do that, actually. You should do that. Do that thing. Should I do that thing? Should I do it? Do I need to do it? I don't want to do it. Somebody with a poli-sci degree should do it.
Well, first of all, I would say we need to
He's not gonna
focus on
answer.
what we can actually control here in Canada. There's nobody who can control President Trump. Mark Carney promised he would, and
he did not promise he could he did not promise that. That's a lie.
since the election we've seen, he's been unable to do that. In fact, he's basically caved on everything when it comes to the president. He's caved.
If he's caved on everything, what are you complaining about? You're complaining that he doesn't have a deal, and then you're complaining that he's caved. Pick a lane. Atlantic said Mark Carney, I understand, is a better representative of traditional conservatism. I think so. I think you're right. I think Mark Carney is very good at presenting progressive ideas to traditional conservatives, in a way that traditional conservatives will understand and agree with. And I think that shouldn't even be that hard, but it is.
Caved on the digital services tax, the Netflix tax. He's caved on counter tariffs on military.
Netflix tax. Netflix. Excuse me. Citation needed here. Hold on. Netflix tax? Question mark? What the fuck is this? Taxes on your Netflix membership. Okay, here's a CBC article because, again, I'm pulling up the CBC article because Pierre Poilievre says that CBC never covers this stuff and pretends it's not happening and never sides with him or whatever. Poilievre comes out swinging against CRTC's Netflix tax, says it could lead to U.S. retaliation. Conservative leader warns squeezing more money out of U.S. web giants could lead to higher streaming prices. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is demanding Prime Minister Mark Carney step in and overrule the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, the CRTC, as it forces mostly American web giants to pay more to fund homegrown media content. In an interview with CBC News, Poilievre said the CRTC's decision to triple the revenue streaming firms like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime must set aside to fund Canadian programming is akin to a tax on consumers and cannot stand. How in the fuck is this folding to Donald Trump and the United States? Please explain this to me. Hell Elmo. This will be a consumer tax. It will all be passed on. Let's not be naive and pretend that web giants or streamers are just going to absorb it. Of course, they're going to make Canadians pay more. I don't mind. Listen, if Netflix wants to make Netflix cost more, I'm fine with that. Because you want to know who's just going to stop getting Netflix? Me. They're being ridiculous anyway. Netflix has been being a problem. Disney Plus is a problem. Amazon Prime is a problem. Paramount Plus is a problem. They're all being a problem, and they're making themselves a problem regardless. So, fuck them. I don't give a shit. Am I supposed to cry over Netflix? Excuse me while I just play a little song for you guys. Let me just play something for you. Then, apropos of nothing and indicative of nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Apropos of nothing. I don't know. I would never. Considering dropping Netflix and moving to Rakuten, half the price and bigger Asian library. Oh man, I want a bigger Asian library. Damn. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna need somebody to explain to me how the CRTC making a decision and the federal government not interfering with that decision and not getting in their hair about the decision that they're making is folding to Donald Trump by taxing American by taxing American mega corporations more money. Please explain this to me. Explain this to me like I'm 5. Please tell Elmo. Please tell Elmo. Please explain this to me. Because he just said, last question that he didn't answer, he said that the government should not interfere and should get out of the way. And so the CRTC makes a decision, and now he's complaining that Mark Carney didn't get out of the way, or did get out of the way, and he should have interfered. And not interfering means that he folded to the Americans, even though the decision that the CRTC is making is charging more tax to American companies, which is going to give... That's not taxes on the people, that's taxes on the industry. So that... explain this to me. I don't know. If there's a fucking Pierre Poilievre bootlicker out there that can explain this to me and how this is not contradictory, let me know.
It's been countless of many of these things that we should have been doing anyway. Carney's been forced to do them because he ultimately backed down and went...
What? So, how can you fucking say... How does this man just say these things? How do you just say this? So now he's saying that Carney's done all these bad things that were things that we should have done anyway, but Carney is doing they're things that we should have done, and Carney's done them because Carney's a bad person who's been forced to do these things because he did a wrong thing, even though these are the good things that he's saying should have been done, even though he just called them bad things. I'm going to get my beer. I can't with this nonsense. What the fuck? Being a pirate is alright with me. Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate. Oh my god. Alright, this is the clip. If anybody fucking comes to me and is like, oh, Pierre Poilievre, blah blah blah, or tells me some fucking bullshit Mark Carney talking point that I've just been hearing these conservatives spew, I'm gonna play them this clip. I'm gonna play them this fucking clip right here. Right here. I'm just gonna be like, here, listen to this for 30 seconds and you fucking tell me, alright?
Some of my peers to find out what their questions were for you.
Right.
Because I knew that I was gonna have my own lens and other people are gonna have theirs. This comes from a law professor that I'm a huge fan of. President Trump's political and economic attacks on Canada have changed the political landscape here. How do you campaign for conservative principles when many Canadians are looking unfavorably at conservatism in the US?
Well, first of all, I would say we need to focus on what we can actually control here in Canada. There's nobody who can control President Trump. Mark Carney promised he would, and since the election we've seen, he's been unable to do that. In fact, he's basically caved on everything when it comes to the president. He's caved on the digital services tax, the Netflix tax. He's caved on counter tariffs, on military spending, countless. And many of these things that we should have been doing anyway, Carney's been forced to do them because he ultimately backed down and went from elbows up to sucking up. So,
all right, I want any conservative out there who is supportive of Pierre Poilievre, please explain that to me. Please explain this whole ass waffle that has just been flip-flopping. Have you ever seen like a soggy waffle that's kind of crumbling and falling apart and it can't hold any maple syrup anymore and it just turns into mush? That's where we're at. I'm drinking crack canoe, Moosehead. Thank you for the stretch. Backing down on things you should have been doing anyway sounds like a great way to gain leverage without actually giving up anything. Yeah. Right? How does somebody say so many contradictory back and forth things in one sentence? I don't know. I don't know.
The moral of that story is, let's focus on what we can control. We can't control Trump, but we can control what we do with our own economy.
He's literally just copying what Mark Carney's been saying.
And I think the positive thing is that there's a lot we can do. We should be the richest country in the world right now. By far. We have the fourth most farmland per capita, depending on how you measure it. We have about the fifth or sixth most natural gas, the fourth most oil, the third most uranium, the most potash, the biggest oceanic coastline. Like, we should be by far the richest country anywhere on Earth.
Okay, so here's the thing, Poilievre. You know what you need to be able to utilize farmland? You know what you need to be able to mine and ship and procure oil, gas, and minerals? Do you know what you need for that? People. You need fucking people. We can have all the fucking woods in the world. We can have all the lumber on the fucking planet. And you know what? It's meaningless if we can only move so much of it at a time because there's only so many people. If you want us to be richer, we need to have social safety nets and economic mobility that enables Canadians to have housing and have kids, as well as solid immigration that is, 1, reasonable, and 2, isn't gummed up by too much bullshit. It's like streamlined as best as possible. If you want that. But again, this is looking backwards, not looking forwards. He's looking backwards at shit instead of forwards towards new shit. And I think that's one of the problems with current Republican and conservative viewpoints right now. This populism nonsense. Because it's so heavily reliant on people thinking about the past and how we've made money before. And it's like, mining's not going to get you very far. One of the reasons why the United States is in such turmoil is because they set themselves on a course and then, like, half tried to turn around. The goal was to, like, be spacefaring and no longer have to do mundane factory work and move away from mundane factory work. So that's what, like, why education was so important, why automation was so important, why there was such a strong push for that once upon a time. And now they're like, oh, but all the cold jobs are going away. Yeah, that wasn't by design. It was intended to go away. The point is to, while it goes away, shift and grow your population and educate your population in a different direction so that way they would still have good paying, steady jobs that they can move into instead of going into a dying industry. That's the point. That's what's supposed to happen. Duh.
And we can do that if we unlock our enterprises through fast permits, low taxes,
And we're back on his fucking checklist of fucking slogan checklist. All right, like, they're not blocked. They're just requirements to be able to do X, Y, or Z. There are regulations, and those regulations are there for reasons. Tell you what, Poilievre, if you don't like one of the regulations, why don't you tell us specifically which regulation you're finding limiting, why, and what we should do, or why we should get rid of it? Just because something is limiting does not mean it's bad. You're not allowed to run beside the pool either. Is that limiting your freedoms? Because the reason that's a safety rule is so you don't slip, fall, eat shit, and drown. Like, my guy.
And more competition. We unblock our resources by rapidly approving pipelines, mines, ports, and other things. If we unbridle our workers with low taxes so that hard work is actually pays off and people...
Bro thinks that hard work means, like, literally, like, pickaxe mining.
Benefit from their contributions. I think that's how we bring back the $1 trillion that has left for the United States. And, you know, if your goal is to get back at President Trump, well, the way to do it is by unlocking...
Our goal is not to get back at Donald Trump. Canadians are petty, but that's not the kind of petty we are. That's the wrong kind of petty. We don't need to get back at Donald Trump. Most Canadians know that Donald Trump himself is mostly inconsequential outside of being fun to meme on and be a dick about him. Most Canadians know he's not really the fucking issue. Actually, if you look at polls, there was a poll that was done not too long ago that was talking about the relationship between Canada and the United States, and about 38% said that this divergence situation that we're watching unfold between basically a very big cultural difference between the United States and Canada had been something that has been building for a long time, and I would agree with that. It wasn't the highest voted reason, though, by the way, just so you know. It was like the third highest, but...
And unblocking our own economy so that we can compete with our American friends and compete with the rest of the world, rather than just, you know, political theater.
To clarify...
Political theater! Unbelievable. I can't... Unreal. Okay.
I think the argument being made here is because Trump represents conservatism in the US, it's...
Yeah, he didn't answer the question.
Like, it's no secret that the Liberals have tried to paint you as a Donald Trump-like figure. I don't think that...
The Liberals have not tried to paint him that way. Poilievre has been that way. Nobody has to try to make him look like Donald Trump. You can literally just put things that Donald Trump has said side by side with Pierre Poilievre, and you're gonna see, like, a mirror image.
That's the case, but they've tried to connect the conservatism in the US with the conservatism in Canada. And someone like David from Moose on the Loose is a fan of Donald Trump's conservatism.
Oh my god, Moose on the Loose again? What is the deal? What is the deal with this guy? I have to watch more Moose on the Loose because I really don't wanna.
Style. And then you have red Tories in Ontario that aren't a fan of his style, but are still somewhat conservatives. But it seems like there's
red
this gap
Tories.
Here. How do you sell Canadians who are afraid of conservatism in the US, making its manifest here in Canada?
Okay, people are not afraid of conservatism, okay? The thing that people do not like, that are the Canadians that are seeing in the United States, is fascism. Not conservatism. And the fact that you're trying to marry these two things together is peak-ass fucking propaganda bullshit. This is not an issue of Canadians don't like conservatism in the United States. It's the Canadians don't like the nationalist fascism that's happening in the United States. That's the issue. That's the problem. Atlantic said, I don't think I've ever heard the Liberals draw that comparison. I think I've heard it in the media a little bit, but you only have to listen to Pierre speak to hear the similarities between him and Donald Trump. Yes. Yeah, I haven't seen, like, any particular push by the Liberal Party to make Pierre Poilievre sound anything but the way he is. Like, I don't think I've seen that. I have noted that Mark Carney has gone out of his way to present himself as a complete counter to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump yells a lot. He's very boisterous. He like waffles on stuff, etc., etc. He's very chaotic by nature. And Mark Carney has gone out of his way to present himself as an adult in the room, right? As like a very steady, very calm, knows what he's talking about, doesn't raise his voice, doesn't rise to like Donald Trump baiting him, doesn't like get into like little spat arguments. He's like he's trying to like be above it all. Is he? No. He's still like a little bit the Canadian snark does not doesn't get missed, but it's representative as opposed to, I'll put it this way. If Donald Trump is the representative of the average American and Carney is the representative of the average Canadian, you know.
without doing that?
The answer is to put forward a uniquely Canadian agenda, and that's what I believe I've done. I mean...
Oh, you mean like build Canada? You mean like resourcing all of our building projects to Canadian companies? Oh, you mean like the military Canada project? That is basically, there's a policy that Mark Carney recently put forward that says anytime there's a military contract that comes up for the Canadian military, Canadian industries get first bids and are chosen by default as opposed to foreign companies. That doesn't mean no foreign companies will get any bids, but if we can do it in-house, the idea is that we do it in-house. Like that kind of Canadian first sort of policy, like the kind of idea where we go out of our way to buy our own shit. The housing market using, or say, maybe you want something a little bit more symbolic. Maybe you want something like, oh, hey, we're going to have a contest, a design contest for Canadian architects and designers to build us and design us and fix our prime minister's house. That'd be cool. And then we're going to use exclusively Canadian products to do so. Wouldn't that be neat?
You know, if you look at it, here you got, here's a real choice. Mark Carney moved his corporate headquarters to the United States of America days after he learned of the tariffs.
Oh no. Conservatives say Carney is lying about his role moving investment firm's office to the United States. Formal decision to move Brookfield's head office made after he resigned, Carney says. At what point is Poilievre just doing slander? Like, at what point is it just libel and slander? I'm curious to know. At what point can he just be sued? Hey, remember when I asked people how, like, should there be consequences for politicians lying to their constituents?
He is, and the Liberal Party have implemented policies that have driven $1 trillion to the U.S. Of our investment. So that
he resigned, meaning Carney resigned. Carney from Brookfield, yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Wait, hold on, 1 second. What website is this? Oh, it's CBC News. Oh, funny. Weren't they saying and complaining earlier that CBC News didn't criticize Carney or talk about any of these conspiracy theories that the conservatives in not mainstream media are talking about, like Moose on the Loose, and I guess presumably Nuanced with Aaron Pete? Oh, that's funny because this seems to be an article by CBC News. So your source for this that you pulled up, that you put in your video, is a CBC News article saying that some conservatives said this thing? That's it? Yeah, if Carney resigned, he holds no influence. He holds no influence, and All of his stuff is in a blind trust and was put in a blind trust before he was legally required to do so. We know this for a fact. Poilievre, if you don't like this idea of making money in politics, forgo your pension plan. Then maybe I'll believe you. And then how about put forward a policy or put forward a bill about removing money from politics in Parliament, and then maybe I'll believe you. Outside of that, you're just bitching. Is there anything stopping Pierre Poilievre from right now saying something along the lines of, listen, I've got a huge pension plan for the amount of time I've been in politics, and you know what? There shouldn't be so much money in politics, so I'm going to forgo my pension plan. I'm only going to take 10% of it, let's say. Cool. And now I'm going to propose this policy, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to propose this policy that limits the amount that the amount of money somebody can have when they enter politics. So if somebody wants to enter the political game, they have to give up their wealth. Not put it in a blind trust, give it up. Because that seems to be what he's saying. That nobody can be independently wealthy or have a career before going into politics, which is fucking absurd. It's an absurd statement. It doesn't, no. Absolutely not. You don't want that, I assure you. You don't want the result of what that would be. Until then, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if Carney's rich. Is he doing a good job? It's really funny because didn't Pierre Poilievre say before that industry should be unlocked? Is this not locking down industry, what he's saying now? Arbitrary additional restrictions based off of his vibes?
He is, and the Liberal Party have implemented policies that have driven $1 trillion to the U.S. in...
He thinks that moving a headquarters to a physical location increases the amount of money made in that location by that business because he's a child and doesn't understand how industry works. Yeah, driven how? Driven how? Driven in what way? The Build Canada? The counter tariffs? The what? Our shitload of nurses and people we have coming to Canada to get jobs and have a better future and an education because we have some of the top universities in the world? Yeah, the bridge? What are you talking about? He's not going to tell us. He's being specifically vague on purpose. Do I need to fucking read this article? Now the Liberal leadership frontrunner is facing scrutiny for some of the decisions being taken by Brookfield Asset Management during his time as board chairman, including one to move the company's head office from Toronto to the United States. Cool. When did that happen? Right? Downplayed his role in that decision as at a news conference on Tuesday night after the Liberal leadership debate, saying it was a decision formally made by the board after he left the company in January. So if the decision was made in January, and he talked about this during the Liberal debate, which was before he was the leader of the Liberal Party, which was before he was Prime Minister. Time exists. Imagine that. Let me click back just a little bit. I want to see what the date is on this article. February 26, 2025.
Of our investment. So that I don't understand how that is standing up for Canada. If you want a truly patriotic agenda, it should be one that...
We don't. Why would we want that? Why would we want a truly patriotic agenda? Canadians aren't that kind of patriotic. That ain't how we roll. It's never been how we roll. Any conservative want to chime in on that bombshell? No, of course not. They're all vibes. They're all vibes and they're fifis. They don't actually have any wherewithal to understand or grasp or understand the nuance of the facts of a matter. Funny thing, this nuance with Aaron Pete is lacking any nuance. Funny thing that.
Bridles and unlocks our own economy and does well by the Canadian people. Like, that we should judge the policies by what they do, not...
Oh, you mean we should judge the policies by what they do, not whether or not the PM does or does not have money in his bank account? Really? Then go after the fucking goddamn policies, dipshit.
By how they make us feel about Donald Trump. If I could implement a policy that makes it possible for 25-year-olds to buy houses in Vancouver, or for you to feel safe walking down East Hastings Street, or...
Okay, feeling safe and being safe are two different things. You can feel like you're in danger and feel unsafe without being unsafe at all. Like what policy? Yeah, for example, he's not answering a single... He's been being thrown softballs this entire time. He hasn't answered a single question.
To make the Persian community in Vancouver feel safe again from the risk of the IRGC terrorists, or...
Oh, you mean like doing things like Bill C-9, which is adding amendments to a pre-existing bill that stops things like hate speech and blocking people from being allowed to enter their religious sites. Stuff like that.
Or let mothers buy affordable food. Who cares what does it?
Yeah, we're stopping mothers from buying affordable food. Who's stopping mothers from buying affordable food? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh yeah, the terrorist truckers that Pierre Poilievre was backing, those guys? They were terrorists, by the way. They were deemed as such. Canadian Nick Fuentes? Anybody? No? Yeah, he's also referencing municipal and provincial files. Yeah, there's a difference between municipal governments, provincial governments, and federal governments. These are all different things, and they just like to conflate all of them as if they're the same thing and then try to pin everything on one guy, as if that's the case. You do know that, like, Mark Carney is not really the one doing most of the negotiation with the United States, right? Like, he has a hand in it. He gets some final says on yes or no or certain things. But he's not the one actually, like, hanging out with Howard Lutnick, you know what I mean? It's not him. They think we're stupid.
Donald Trump thinks about any of those things. Shouldn't we be concerned about our own people rather than whether...
The United States has one of the largest armies in the world, has one of the biggest economies in the world. We have to concern ourselves and take Donald Trump seriously. Period. End of sentence. That doesn't mean what he says really matters, because he's a waffly motherfucker. We can't not trade with the United States. We have to trade with the United States, both geographically and politically, and from just a general economic sense. It's absurd to suggest otherwise.
Our policies make us feel, superior to or in conflict with the U.S. president?
That's a great point. Why do you...
Oh, is it? Is that you don't have any questions about that? No, you got nothing to say? No, zero things? Okay. Okay.
I think you run such high disapproval numbers with women. What do you think's underneath that?
I don't know that I do.
Misogyny.
There's now 2 major post-election studies out on how people voted, and this was the highest, best performance by the Conservative Party since at least the 1980s.
I've got the biggest numbers. I had the highest turnover rate. That wasn't the question. Nobody asked about your numbers. It is a fact that you polled like shit with women. Why do you think that is, Pierre? It's the misogyny.
In support from women, and there was almost no gender gap in the last election. Support for the Conservatives under me was roughly as high among women as it was among men. So that is something that just sort of political commentators have repeated ad nauseum.
So the polls came out, the information came out. This guy's like, "Nuh-uh, fake news anyway." And watch our interviewer not even question him about it.
But
He's
no
just going to accept
there's
it.
no support for it in the actual data.
I will provide you some data then. I have from Abacus data, 39% of men say Poilievre understands people like them. Among women, this is 8 points lower, and 38% of men.
Yeah, you proved me wrong. Thank you for showing the actual data. Props, Aaron. Brofist. Good shit. Actually bringing up some goddamn numbers. This is the first time you fucking brought up a quote-unquote difficult question and then actually gave him some pushback. It only took us a half an hour. Let's go. Hell yeah.
Say Poilievre shares my values. This drops to 29% among women per Abacus.
Well, I mean, look at the Abacus post-election poll, because it shows...
No, answer the question.
I think we got 39% of the female vote in the last election, and 43% of the male votes. That's like almost no gender gap, and would be a
Answer the question.
Massive increase in support for Conservatives among women over the prior election and over any other election since the Conservative Party was really newly reconstituted. So I just, and you look at the Canadian election study, which came out, that did a very extensive polling with the very high level of with very large sample sizes, and it found a very similar result. So at the end of the day, I think the reason why my policies have been so...
His answer is saying nuh-uh.
...popular with women is because,
So he just flipped the question. Did you catch that? He just flipped the question. Why am I so popular with women as opposed to unpopular with women? Did you catch that? I'll play that shit again.
Large sample sizes, and it found a very similar result. So at the end of the day, I think the reason why my policies have been so popular with women is because, they're common sense. Women are struggling with...
It's the misogyny. It's the misogyny. That's why. Do you see how he's just dismissing the voting bloc of women because they didn't vote for him? Right? You see what's happening here, right? You see how he's presented with data. Then he says, but if you look at these other poll numbers, when you compare them to this thing under these, like, you can make statistics say anything, basically, that situation. And then saying, see how there's basically no gender gap, so therefore among the number of people that were already voting for me, the number was the number? Yeah, but we're not asking you about that number. We're asking you about the number who aren't voting for you on purpose. We're not asking about the people that you are now pretending that you're... And how are you going to claim that the numbers are equal and then say that you're popular? Because you just said there's like almost no gender gap, so then they would be equal, but now you're saying you're popular. Well, if you're going to imply that you're popular, then your number should be higher, right? So you see how he's taking this one step, rolling in a bunch of bullshit, flipping the question, and then using that to extrapolate an additional level of like valor that was not earned. And then to answer a question that was never asked. Atlantic says, it's embarrassing to me as a man that support for Poilievre is as high as it is in my demographic. He lies and misdirects and misinforms. He's intellectually dishonest. It's enraging. Isn't he not frustrating? Is he not incredibly frustrating? I bet you the reason why he doesn't know how his family feels about him being gone is because they don't tell him because they're glad he's gone. They're like, yes, go campaign. Go, have fun, leave. I'd rather hang out with a nanny. Fuck off. Oh my god. Unfucking believable.
With affordability, they're facing crime problems in their communities. I want to point out something that Holy Smokes in the chat said a hot minute ago. Yeah, your racism is very so thinly veiled, it's transparent. Want to be able to live safely and affordably in a country where their hard work is rewarded, and they haven't actually gotten any of those things from the Liberal Party, and I think the fact that I presented a positive agenda in the last election to solve those problems was probably the reason why we did so well with women and men on the ballot.
Your memory recall is off the charts. Do you think you get enough credit for that?
Are you serious, dude? He literally just spat in your face and you're gonna thank him for it. He just spat at you and you went, thank you, spit in my mouth again, daddy.
I have no idea. I have never thought of my memory as being especially good.
What do you think?
I don't think his memory is especially good either. That's why he's got so many talking points and he's got such a script he has to follow.
What do you think makes you a strong leader in this role? Like there's a lot of skills people can bring to the table. Your memory recall has to be one of those, right?
I don't know. You're the first person that's ever said that. I have a tendency to...
You do it in the House of Commons all the time. You're rattling them off. I'm watching Liberal MPs reading, their hands shaking while they're trying to read off of a piece of paper, and you're just running it off the top of your head.
Well, if only I could remember where I left my phone, or remember to pick my socks up. My wife has to remind me to do those sorts of things sometimes.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Your wife has to pick up your clothes after you, you giant man-child, to the surprise of fucking nobody.
And so, I don't know.
Why don't women like me? I don't know. Who could say?
I guess when I read and study things, there are certain facts that fascinate me that are probably mind-numbingly boring to normal people, and so those facts remain resilient.
I would like to point out that he rattled all that off without a single citation, like where those numbers came from or how.
Resident in my mind.
Do you believe there should be public disclosure or a formal investigation into whether anything was offered, positions, promises, incentives, or future opportunities in exchange for the individuals who floor crossed?
I think it's going to be very hard to find out exactly what motivated it, but at the end of the day, these people ran on the Conservative platform. They ran under my leadership. And nothing has changed since the election that should give them any reason to believe differently than they did when the people voted for them. And in all of the cases, they all got more votes under my leadership than they had in prior elections, or that they're
Are you sure about that? Because you would have to reference that with the other time you were still the leader for a prior election, but also... is he trying to take credit for them winning their ridings when he lost his riding? Is that what he's doing? And now it's a conspiracy. They're traitors. Is that what this is? He's so mad.
That our party had in their riding in the prior election. So they ultimately betrayed the people that voted for them, and I think
what did I say? Traitors. Oh my god, this man is such a goof. Donk. Should I just get should I have the dodgeball sound on should I have the dodgeball sound on hotkey?
They will be held accountable. I think there should be a law allowing people to petition for the resignation of members of parliament who've crossed the floor. And then
what? Hold on, say that again.
To petition for the resignation of members of parliament who've crossed the floor. And
can you... Excuse me. Well, hold on. I don't think there's a law against that. I'm pretty sure you can do that. Okay, so it wouldn't be legally binding, but okay, so according to this, the House of Commons members and its members, right? vacancies in representation. Once elected, members are expected to serve for the duration of a parliament. Nonetheless, vacancies in representation may and often do occur. A person ceases to be a member of the House of Commons when that person dies, that person resigns his or her seat, the person has accepted an office of profit or emolument under the crown, that person has been elected to sit in a provincial legislative assembly, the member's election has been overturned in accordance to the election shit. The House has, by order, declared that the member's seat is vacant and has ordered the Speaker to address a warrant to the Chief Electoral Officer for the issue of a writ of election for a new member. Death of a member, resignation. A member may give notice for his or her intention to resign by making a statement on the floor of the House of Commons. Immediately upon the recording of the notice in the journals of the House, the Speaker addresses a warrant to the Chief Electoral Officer for the issue of a writ for the election of a member to fill the vacancy. A member may also resign his or her seat by delivering to the Speaker a written declaration of intention to resign signed before 2 witnesses. On receiving the declaration, the Speaker addresses the warrant to the Chief Electoral Officer for the issue of a writ for the election of a member to fill the vacancy. A member who wishes to resign when there is no Speaker or when the Speaker is absent, blah, 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 blah. Once a member has tendered his or her resignation, the seat is deemed to be vacant and the individual ceases to be a member of Parliament. No member, however, may tender his or her resignation while his or her election is being contested or until after the expiration time during which the election may be contested on grounds other than corruption or bribery. There are already ways to do what he is suggesting. This already exists. Now, if you want to... So here's another reference, right? Government of Canada reference. House of Commons. Any person holding a seat in the House of Commons may resign the seat. A, by giving in that person's place in the House of Commons notice of intention to resign, in which case the Speaker of the House shall immediately, after entry of that notice by the Clerk of the House on the journals thereof, address a warrant under the blah, blah, blah. This says the same thing. This says the same thing? This says the exact same thing. Okay, so the thing is you can petition your MP to resign. You can do that. There's nothing stopping a bunch of Canadians from phoning their MP and telling them they need to resign. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. They could write a petition, they could submit the petitions. Those petitions are not legally binding, nor should they be, because that's not how that works. That's not how any of that fucking works. So, no, them crossing does not initiate, and nor should it initiate a removal from office. Because you know what that would do? Horrifically limit the abilities of Parliament. The actual counter-argument is, but I didn't vote for the person, I voted for the party. Yeah, that would be an actual counter-argument. But that's fucking not how our ridings work. So it doesn't work that way. So at the end of the day, if you want that to happen, then you need to, you can do that. Go for it. Nobody's stopping you. Duh.
And then,
but to suggest that they should be legally binding is actually crazy to me. Like, didn't he just say that he wanted the government to stay out of people's hair? And now he's saying that if an individual crosses the floor, then the government should intervene?
that would be one way for the constituents to hold accountable those who make that decision.
I just don't see how...
Hold accountable? Hold accountable for making that decision? What do you... My guy, you literally stole a seat from somebody else. I don't think you want the consequences of your actions, because if you had the consequences of your actions and you overtook somebody else's seat who was rightfully voted for by force and coercion, then you ought to be kicked the fuck out of Parliament, my guy.
You can't see it as a betrayal, and I am blown away by the response that people have tried to point it at you, because at this point there's been so many
Why?
And it's completely goes against all the values they claimed to have had.
How?
But I don't see how it isn't necessary to really dig into this, because I think
In
that
what
those
way?
voters in those areas feel betrayed. I think the country feels a bit betrayed. And now you're
What?
seeing the outcome of this majority that I think was illegitimately gotten. And Canadians are now starting to feel betrayed. And I don't think that we'll see.
No, they're not. You're just mad. You're just salty. You're just salty. Again, I will remind you that Mark Carney and the Liberals' approval rate is over 60%. Salt. The salt, the tears. Oh, that's so sad. How unfortunate.
Reaction to that when the bills are passed, I think once they start to be implemented, people will become more aware of the negative impacts.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I think we're in a funny phase.
Guys, we've been bamboozled. Again, I will remind you, remember when I said earlier today, like a little bit ago, when I said, hey, I don't think these guys realize that their job is to be the opposition, isn't to oppose everything the other party is doing. It's to work together, and you're not supposed to be diametrically opposed and stopping. Your job isn't to dig your heels in and stop the government from doing anything. That's not your job, and it's what you've been doing. God, you're embarrassing.
Where people are judging Carney on his announcements and his promises and his perceived intentions, not on his actual results. And I think...
Okay, so give me an example of what he said versus what he did versus what the result was. Give me a concise, precise analysis and compare and contrast those three things. Now, they have to be three things that are related. Like, you can't pick unrelated ones, right? Give me a walkthrough of an example. You should be able to do this, right? You just got called out on your memory. You just got called out on, like, being so good at this and having all this, like, data you can just pull up. You should be able to, you're supposed to be a smart guy, right? You should be able to do this. You haven't done this once. You know what would be really effective in the parliamentary debate? Doing something like that, provided that the information you say is true.
Our biggest political challenge right now is to ask people, how's your life going after a year and a half of Mark Carney?
I bought a house, and I'm a millennial, so pretty good. Whoops. Oh, sorry, I was just not the person you were... And I'm a woman, oh no. Whoopsie. My bad. Sorry.
Are your groceries more affordable? Is your paycheck outgrowing your mortgage payment? Can your kids move out of the basement? Is your job more or less secure?
Oh, it was directed at me. He's talking about parents and basements.
Is your neighborhood safer than it was before Carney and the Liberal government? And when you ask...
Quite frankly, my neighborhood feels incredibly safe. Like, I don't know if I've ever lived in a place where I felt more safe. This area seems so, like, clean and tidy, and everything about where I'm currently living, I feel like I've, like, upgraded my whole life. I'm not gonna lie. Groceries are still expensive. Like, but, you know, I'm not gonna blame the federal government. I also buy farm eggs, not grocery store eggs, from a farmer. So there's that. So you take that for what you will. I also, like, live really close to the grocery store, so I'm slowly getting into it. So I'm not sure how my grocery bill's gonna look, but I'm slowly getting into the habit of going to the grocery store on, like, an every other day situation and buying smaller amounts instead of just buying a chunk at a time. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make chicken dumplings today. Maybe I'll let you guys join me.
Ask people that, they overwhelmingly say no. But unfortunately, the Liberals and the media have created a false illusion around Carney about the things he will do somewhere down the road. And he's been...
Well, why don't you actually talk about the length of time that it takes from the implementation of something or the presentation of an idea, to arguing about it in Parliament, to passing it through Parliament, to implementing it, to then feeling the effect of it down the road. One of the reasons why we're feeling an effect of housing, the housing prices coming down, and the reason why we're feeling the effect of rent coming down in the area that I live in is because I live near Toronto. And there are rules and laws that Trudeau put in about property ownership and about Airbnbs and rental properties a couple of years ago that we're now starting to see down the line. So it takes a couple of years for those things to actually, and the market to rebound and react to what's going on, right? So we've got Wally here. Sorry, Wally, give me 1 second. I want to read through what you're saying. But I have been live for nearly 2 hours, so I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back, and we're going to get to what Wally's saying, all right? So, chat, entertain Wally for a minute, ask some clarifying questions as needed, and I will be right back. I want to look at what Wally's saying. So I'll be back momentarily. Thank you. Please be patient. I love you. Okay, I am back. It's 10 a.m. 10 a.m. sunny. Animal Crossing's New Horizons. Good ear. Good ear. Welcome back. Okay, let me take a look here what Wally's saying. Okay, let's see. I turned on a fan because it's a little bit spicy in here. We're gonna see how big my guns start getting in the next little while. Thank you very much for the stretch. I will take that momentarily. Let me see what Wally's saying first. All right, Wally says Carney gave corrupt officials in Ukraine over $35 billion. Instead, we could have bought over 50 badly needed water bombers. That's not how budgeting works. That's not how budgeting works. If you want to allocate funds, the allocation of those funds needs to be done through Parliament. It's not like just a one-person decision that somebody just gets to renege on a budget and reassign money where it was not assigned to be going already. So that's not quite how that works. I get the sentiment, but that's just not the functionality of it. If you want more money put into fire and that's a provincial government issue, not a Carney issue. You're going to have to talk to your local provincial government about that. So I don't know where you're at or what province you're in, but it would be that elected official that you would have to talk to about that. Now, let's see. We paid 100% of $6.4 billion for bridge construction, yet the U.S. gets half of the revenue for free thanks to Master Negotiator Carney. Wally, do you know when that bridge was implemented? Like when the design of that bridge started and when the building of that bridge started? You can just put yes or no. You don't have to give me the actual date or time. You can just give me a yes or no if you know the answer to that. And the next one says, Carney, the self-proclaimed master negotiator, failed to negotiate a new Kuzma as promised. Kuzma is still in the works, so calling it failed isn't quite up there. But I would also point out that not having a new Kuzma deal is on the table. That was never not on the table. So that's fine. I don't view this as a failure on his part. I'm not sure why you do. Caved for the Gordie Howe Bridge, which is the bridge that you already referenced, so I've already asked questions about that, so we'll skip that one. Netflix and digital service tax, we already talked about Netflix, so if you want to see that, go back and look at it. Atlantic makes a good point and says Carney promised that Canada would not sign a bad deal for Kuzma. Failing to get a bad deal is not a failure. Correct. And yes, and also Kuzma is still ongoing and it is still active and will be still active for what, like another 2 to 3 years? If I'm remembering correctly. So Wally, if you can let me know if you're still there, I have a question for you after you answer yes or no whether or not you know when that bridge was commissioned. I'll give him a minute, and then we'll continue on with watching this. And I will take this opportunity to stretch and touch my toesies, my little goblin toesies. I have the smallest feet. I have the smallest feet in the world. They're so tiny. Yeah, feline is correct. We talked about this before. We've talked about it in the past, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But Kuzma, every handful of years, Kuzma gets quote-unquote renegotiated, and that's mostly just to make new deals or make changes or amendments, and that's just to help keep the deal relevant and up to date, as opposed with like the needs of what's going on right now. The deal doesn't just fucking stop. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. It also means that generally one president and one presidential term will not be able to eliminate Kuzma on its own. So even if Donald Trump got 2 terms in a row, he would not be able to eliminate, quote-unquote, what he called the greatest deal. So, irrelevant. Michigan needs 2 liberal governors in a row to make up for the trash human we had that literally poisoned children for a generation. Yeah, there's that. It takes time. Is Wally gone? Wally, did he run away? Can we get volleyballs and dodgeballs in the chat for Wally? How unlucky. Why can't any of these people have an adult conversation like a normal human being? Alright, anyway.
Being judged on that illusion rather than on people's real life experience. So my job is actually to force a collision between reality and the
No, it's not.
illusion of Mark Carney. And I think when that illusion happens, people will feel justifiably disappointed.
Al puts a bunch of splats in and says these volleyballs are oddly rectangular. He's gone. He ran away already? That's gotta be a record, man. That's gotta be a record. What's wrong? Why? Why they always got why? Why are they so scared? I have a number. You could even call in and talk to me. I can give you a number that you can call in and scream obscenities at me. Hey, there you go.
With what they got compared to what they were promised.
You asked him multiple times in the
Then
House.
just do that. Like, I am not against Pierre Poilievre comparing what Carney said and what Carney did and what the results are. That's great. Do that. In fact, do that thing. That's a great thing to do. You should do that. Why aren't you doing that? He's not here for a conversation. He's here to spread the good news, right? You mean he's preaching? Go figure.
With what they got compared to what they were promised.
You asked him multiple times in the House of Commons if we were in a technical recession or a real recession.
Yes.
And to just pull back the curtain, did you expect him not to answer that question? What is behind the scenes when you leave that room after he's not answered that question and people have tiptoed around it and avoided it? What does that tell you? What are your takeaways? Did you know he wasn't going to answer when you went in?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to look at the clip to find out. Is Canada, let's just ask, is Canada in a recession? 2026. Because I'm pretty sure our job market is up overall. I'm pretty sure our revenue is up overall. But the GDP has shrunk a little bit, but we all know that GDP is a bullshit way to measure that in the first place. There's a BBC article from 3 weeks ago that asks just how much trouble is Canada's economy in. Does that count? That's not quite what I'm asking. Our inflation rate has gone down. It's still high in the G7, but it's gone down overall. Asking about not answering questions to the guy that never answered a question. The irony. Yeah, that's actually irony. Economic growth in Canada this year is forecast to be 1.6% according to the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. That's behind the United States, but ahead of the European G7 partners. So that looks good to me. As the country's economy recovers from a slowdown triggered by U.S. tariffs, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, an influential global policy group, projects a modest improvement in gross domestic product, or GDP, growth of 1.7% in 2027 early this month. Data from the country's statistics agency said Canada had slipped into a technical recession, 2 consecutive quarters of GDP decline in late 2025 and early 2026. Quote, the government is responding in real time to shifting global economic volatility and broad-based supply chain disruption with a serious plan to grow exports, create jobs, and invest in productivity forward projects, said John Fragos, spokesman for Finance Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne. Economists cautioned against panic, saying the country is likely to avoid a prolonged downturn, especially given the small decline. In April, GDP edged up, showing 0.5% growth. Quote, whether one chooses to divine the fact that we're in a recession or not really does miss the point. The economy is weak, right? Question mark. Raising inflations, pocketbook pain, blah, 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 blah. So, take that for what you will. Right? This is an article. This one says Canada has sidestepped a recession. Canada sidesteps a recession, but key risks remain. It's almost like being in a recession, technically or otherwise, only is contextually relevant, right? In early 2025, concerns about a looming Canadian recession were widespread. Canada was facing tariff challenges from the United States, its largest trading partner, while still grappling with slow growth following post-pandemic high inflation. Thankfully, those fears did not materialize. Aggressive Bank of Canada interest rate cut and broad tariff exemptions under which roughly 90% of Canadian goods exported to the United States remained exempt under the Canadian-US-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, provided meaningful economic support. Oh, you mean CUSMA, although there is talk about it right now, is still in effect and has still been in effect? Weird. As a result, the Canadian economy moved past the peak of these tariff-related shocks, and a recession stemming from them is no longer the base case scenario in our economic outlook. Together, these factors helped avert a worst-case outcome and significantly ease near-term recession fears. These developments aligned with the risk outlined in EDC's Top 10 Global Risks for Canada Exporters in 2026, where trade fragmentation and policy uncertainty ranked among the most significant threats to growth. Data in this article reflects information available as of January 2026. It's almost like the direction that Mark Carney set us on has prevented a lot of these problems from being a potential issue. That doesn't mean the issue just evaporates. It means that these things take time. And how much of this is in Carney's control? We can't control the United States. Poilievre has already agreed with that and assessed, and has already bowed to that fact. So we can't control Donald Trump, but we can't control the United States. So if they economically attack us, yeah, it's going to cause us issues and we're going to have to deal with it. Does that mean it's Mark Carney's fault? Or is Mark Carney the guy that we want to be able to navigate these fucking choppy as fuck waters that the United States is doing to us on purpose? Idiot.
What it tells me is that he's very wise not to attend question period very often, because it's the only place he faces any tough questions. And he's been very good throughout his adult life.
You're complaining that he didn't answer, and now you're saying he doesn't show up for questions. But he answered, and not the way you wanted him to? Whatever.
Avoiding tough questions, going to places where people throw rose petals at him. And as soon as he's confronted with hard, factual questions, he crumbles. And he
Whether or not we're in a technical recession or a quote-unquote real recession is literally irrelevant. It's not a question that matters. Even the fucking articles talking about it said, it doesn't really matter, you're missing the point.
He performs very badly. I asked him about a lady who was working full-time, having to live on a friend's couch. And he got up and told us a ridiculous, conceited joke about my birthday, which was an insult.
I'm going to need a citation for that. But guess what? An individual living on a couch for variables we can't possibly know what those variables are is meaningless. Your conversation that you allegedly had with the fucking shampoo in your shower doesn't mean anything to us. It's vibes. That's not facts. That's not data. That's that thing you were complaining about earlier.
Insult to her, not to me. He stood up in the House and said that affordability is the best that it's been in a decade. I mean, no one in Canada believes that. But that's the insight we get into his real capabilities when you ask him tough questions and he's not protected.
I love fucking Paperboy Poilievre talking us about real capabilities as he completely misunderstands and misrepresents economics.
By an entire cocoon of media and interest
groups. What?
And so that's why he's missed 100 question periods in a year. He's got the worst performance turnout of.
And Justin Trudeau's was bad.
Well, Justin's was bad.
I don't think that this number is true. I don't know where to get that information, but we've been counting we've been watching the pressers, we've been watching the released information. I would like to point out that Mark Carney has also been traveling and hasn't been in Canada. He's gone to France, the UK, Japan, China, the United States multiple times. He's been traveling around Germany, Norway, Denmark. He's been traveling around the world, so he's not gonna be at session in Parliament for a number of times. So how does that number, that's assuming the number is true, how does that number fucking correlate with his travel? Again, we're back to Poilievre likes to spew these statistics as if they mean anything, but he gives them no contextual information, so they don't mean anything.
Bad, but nowhere near as bad as Carney's. And in fact, Justin, to his credit, would stand up and answer every single question on Wednesdays. All, I think it was from us, 20 or 30, and then another 15 or 20, so 35 questions in a row. It's actually, you got to give him credit for the endurance of that.
Oh my god, have we finally hit the point where Poilievre is so frustrated with Mark Carney because he's got fucking nothing that he's praising Justin Trudeau? Goddamn. Well, I'm waiting for the fucking reversal on the opinion of Justin Trudeau to happen.
Carney shows up once a week and answers 6 questions and then sits there quietly while he lets his backbenchers do the job for him. But the reason for
yeah, we, for funsies, when we watch Mark Carney and when we watch Pierre Poilievre, we usually take, for funsies, take a tally of how many questions were asked versus how many questions were answered. And Poilievre very rarely actually answers questions, including softball ones. And we've caught Mark Carney a couple of times dodging around a question that he doesn't really answer. Although there have been times where we have caught Mark Carney saying, I can't answer that question, and I think that still counts as answering the question. Right? I count that as that. Now, you might not. You don't have to. I'm not saying that this is the dividing line of where you should, but I think that there are times when a politician, like a world leader, is I don't have that data, or I'm not at liberty to say, counts as an answer to a question, because they're I can't give you, I can't say that, right? But yeah, Mr. Fear's got a good point. Poilievre misses his man crush.
That is that the image does not stand up to scrutiny.
Then do it. Then do it. It should be easy.
The illusion of Mark Carney is far superior to the reality of Mark Carney. And so it
Sure.
is, for me, the frustration is how quickly can we bring reality to that illusion so that Canadians can get on with fixing the problems that he and the Liberal Party have caused.
Like what? So name a problem, extrapolate, give us an example, show the one-to-one data, proper data with context, and then show us how they caused the problem, and then tell us how you're going to fix the problem. With a real plan. If it's so obvious, and this is so much just an illusion we're all looking at, it shouldn't be that hard to fucking shatter that illusion, should it? You should be able to be here's here's what he said, here's what he did, here's the actual policy that ended up in place, and here's the result of that policy. The fact that Pierre Poilievre keeps saying he wants to do this and refuses to do it for even a singular point, it should tell you enough.
One of my biggest beliefs is that he's right now managing democracy rather than participating in it, because you say 35 questions by Justin Trudeau he deserves credit. I think 100 questions a day to the Prime Minister of Canada is not unreasonable. And
my guy, 100 questions a day? Well, traveling around the world and negotiating trade deals and doing your job? What do you think the Prime Minister's job is? He's not a PR agent. Can you please justify this expectation of 100 questions a day? 100 a day? When? Mark Carney should spend all day answering questions for us to misrepresent online, right? Yeah. Oh my god. Could you imagine? And let alone, how many of these questions are, fucking dishonest representations. Right? Because we catch that once in a while, too, right? My goodness.
we need to remember that as we go through these things. What would you do to address this technical recession?
So
that may or may not exist.
I think, first of all, I don't think it's a technical recession. I think it's a recession. And it's not,
I will point out that this interview took place 2 weeks ago on the 29th of June, 2026. So whether or not you think that Canada was in a recession or not in a recession or a technical recession or semantic, whatever, fine. Okay.
People say, well, you can't just measure 2 back-to-back negative quarters. Okay, fine. Let's use other measurements. You've got 3 out of the last 4 quarters.
They already agreed with you that the recession exists. They're asking you how you would fix it. Why are you explaining why you think a recession exists?
Economy has shrunk. We've had 5 consecutive quarters of declining investment. We have the second highest unemployment in the G7, the highest household debt in the G7. Look at some of the more human indicators, like the massive increase in food bank demand. We've had a quarter of our food banks last year ran out of food while there were still ongoing demands. Can you imagine people showing up at the food bank?
Across the whole country. Do you have a citation for any of this? I'm sure some of this data is accurate, but without the fucking context and without knowing where the fuck you're talking about, I have the citation needed you. He's using growth isn't good enough. Yeah. So according to them, Carney should have answered 1,700 questions by now. Yes. Food banks are usually municipal concerns. Yes, you're correct. Food banks are usually municipal concerns. Again, we're back to conflating. The federal government is supposed to take care of everybody, but the federal government at the same time is also supposed to stay out of everybody's business. The federal government isn't supposed to collect taxes, but is supposed to pay for everything. The provinces have all the power, but none of the power. The Conservatives can't do anything about any of this. They're just bitching because apparently they have no power in Parliament, allegedly.
Bank and them saying, sorry, we've got nothing left. That's never happened before.
That's not true.
So I think
this never happened before.
For the last 10 years, true. It was masked by large-scale immigration, which inflated economic.
So we've actually really been in a recession for the last 10 years. So, ever since the Conservatives got out of power, we've been in a recession, guys. We've been in a recession since... What year is it? 2026? We've been in a recession since 2016? Oh my god, this is embarrassing.
Activity just because there were more humans transacting in the economy.
My guy, what do you think immigrants do? They bring money. Do you think they don't bring anything with them? There are some immigrants that start with nothing, and then they work a job, and then they pay taxes. So they're giving money to the government because they're paying taxes. What do you think happens when a family moves in from a different country and they buy a house? They pay taxes, and they start paying property tax on the house. What the fuck? Oh my god, I'm back to that point from yesterday about students.
Even though each one of those humans was poorer than they were before, and now because immigration is not as large as it was under Trudeau.
My guy, I would like to point out that he's conflating the immigration policy changes. There's been immigration policy changes, and there's still the number of people trying to immigrate to Canada right now has risen like 13%, which is a crazy big number. That's huge. The number of people applying for citizenship in Canada has spiked so badly, so hard, and so heavily. I shouldn't say badly. Badly's not the right word. Has spiked so much that we can't keep up with it. Does this mean immigration is good now? I don't know. I guess so. Now immigration is good. Sometimes it's bad. I can't tell. I don't know anymore.
They no longer have the camouflage to hide the recession. But, you know, at the end of the day, we need to get the government out of the way and off the backs of the Canadian people. How would I reverse the recession? I would eliminate the...
Then why are you expecting the federal, off the backs of the people, but I'm expecting the Canadian government to make sure, like, fuck it, whatever. Go on.
Capital gains tax on reinvestments in Canada. Anybody who reinvests their gains here should be able to do...
Brilliant. This guy's plan to help the working class is to give money to corporates. That always works.
So tax-free. They'll pay tax one day down the road when they finally cash out. But in the meantime, why not let them roll it?
If? What do you mean when?
Over and grow faster. I would... unblock our resources with the...
Oh, guys, we're back to the checklist again. Unblock the resources. Axe the tax.
With the fastest permits anywhere in the OECD. I would cut the cost and size of government. I'd get rid of 25%.
So you wanna make sure approval ratings go through faster with less oversight, and you don't foresee that causing any safety regulation problems or any issues of violating pre-existing regulations about ecology and local safety, right? Does that seem like a good idea to anybody else? If you go to, like, you know, your average quality worker in a factory, and you say, all right, bro, you've got a quality team of 5 people who's been looking at, let's say, 100 parts an hour, right? 5 people, 100 parts an hour. And you say, all right, guys, you have to now double your output and do 200 parts an hour. Oh, and 3 of you are leaving. So how much did you actually multiply those 2 individuals' work by? How many more parts per hour are they going to have to do? All right, so you got, I'll repeat it. We got another math question for you guys. 100 parts per hour being done by 5 people. You double the number of parts that are required to be done, and you remove 3 workers. How many parts per hour do those 2 workers now have to complete? Okay, I'll wait. I can get more lemon water while I'm at it. So, if you do that, how good of a job do you think your quality workers are going to be able to do per part to make sure that the part that you're outputting is good? You think the quality of the parts that you're sending out is going to be better or going to be worse? Because I guarantee you it's worse. Yeah, anybody can answer this question.
Percent of the regulations in Ottawa, I'd incentivize the municipalities to
speed up. To get rid of 25% of the regulations in Ottawa. Okay, which 25? Which 25%? What does that look like? Which policies are you going to get rid of? Which regulations are you going to get rid of? Because that's important. Just saying 25% gives us 0 context about which ones, because some of those regulations we might not agree with. Those regulations might be really important. Is the regulation that you have to fucking talk to Native American leaders to fucking use their shit? I bet it is.
Permits, because that's a big part of our economy. If you could get those permits moving, you get people swinging hammers and building in a tariff-proof industry like housing. I would cut income taxes to incentivize work, and those things would all be rocket fuel for our economy.
Fascinating. You've said you would get a pipeline built. Under your leadership, how long would it realistically take before Canadians saw a major new pipeline approved, under construction, and completed?
Okay, before he answers this question, Trudeau approved a pipeline that is already in operation in BC. There's also now a proposal for another pipeline already being discussed and has been announced by Mark Carney. So, under the Liberals, so far, 2 have gone through.
So, approved, I want to get to 6-month permitting. So, within 6 months of getting an application, there should be a decision. Under construction, it would depend on private industry, but I believe these things are so profitable that you could get a construction underway within, 7 or 8 months of having a permit. So that just takes you to just over a year. These.
So I would like to point out, Mark Carney has been in power for a year and is proposing a pipeline to be approved. So Mark Carney is on track to do what Pierre Poilievre is saying he would do, but Mark Carney is not sacrificing the regulations. You guys noticed that, right? You guys picked up on that? Yeah. So we've got some answers for my mathematical question. They have to do 100 parts, 5 times more than they were doing before. 100 parts per hour divided by 5 people equals 25 parts per hour per person equals 200. So 200 parts per hour divided by 5 minus 3 people equals 100 parts per person. You got it. And Feline points out, so 5 times the effort. Yeah, that will tank the quality. Yeah, it will. It will tank the fuck out of the quality.
I would not have the government build pipelines. I don't think
Who's having the government build pipelines, by the way? Where? When? What are you fucking talking about? The government's never built pipelines.
Government should have to build these projects. The government needs to get out of the way so that private industry can build these wildly profitable projects. Money. Government is
Can we just replace Pierre Poilievre with Mr. Krabs? Because that's what I feel like. He said, I don't care about anything else. Money.
To build them lately is because we have to subsidize
so narrow-minded
the wall of red tape that the government creates. So, you look at.
So he wants to remove all the red tape and make it so the government does not subsidize any of a pipeline being built? Do you have any idea how expensive and risky a pipeline is? That's insane. That's actually crazy. Yeah, and Atlantic makes a good point. Wildly unprofitable, which is why companies are lining up to build them, right?
The Trans Mountain Pipeline, there was a private proponent that was prepared to do it without any tax dollars, but they came to believe that you can't build anything in Canada. So they sold the project to the government and then took the money we paid them and spent it in Texas without any Texas tax dollars.
I don't think any of that's true. So if they were ready to take the money from our government, you just said that they didn't take any money from our government, and then you said they took money from our government and used it in Texas. That sounds like it's something that you should be concerned about and you should do an investigation on and do your job.
Building things there. That's the wrong model.
I will remind you that Pierre Poilievre not too long ago was visiting Texas on oil pipeline shit.
Why not get out of the way and let businesses build pipelines and then ultimately make them pay taxes into the system rather than the reverse?
The taxes that you're planning on cutting and the carbon tax that you're complaining about and want to also cut? If you take what you said here and then apply it to what you say over here, these people wouldn't be paying any taxes and they wouldn't get any subsidies. He did just say that they don't want to because of the regulations and therefore need subsidies, but I find that incredible. If it's wildly profitable, regulations aren't going to make it unprofitable. Correct. Yes, you got it.
Which is what we have right now. Money-losing projects that government blocks, weighs down, or slows down, and then taxpayers having to bail them out. You can't build an economy on carve-outs, bailouts, and handouts.
How are we bailing out a company that doesn't exist and isn't doing anything and never built anything in our country? And allegedly, according to you, doesn't want to build anything in our country. We can't, that makes no sense.
You have to build it on productive private sector investment. And that's how I would get things. That's the kind of project I would get built in Canada.
He didn't answer the question. The question was about the timeline of how long it would take for you to get something approved, to get a pipeline approved. And he didn't answer the question. This man is such a wet sock.
Wrong. I mean, I speak to industry privately, and they say British Columbia is one of the...
Oh, do you? You speak to industry privately? Do you? A citation needed. I feel like when you count, I called their PR office for a quote does not count as talking to industry privately. Please, citation needed this. I don't believe you. I might be wrong. Maybe he does. Maybe he's got some crazy connections. I don't know. This is the first time I've ever seen this guy, but I don't fucking believe you right off the cuff. You're gonna have to convince me on that one. X to doubt. I talk to industry privately. Okay. Sure.
Least competitive markets they operate in North America, which is just shocking. You spoke.
Well, I talked to one BC investor who, I won't name him because he hasn't given me permission, but he's probably one of the most famous.
The soap bottle in my shower.
British Columbia businessmen of all time. And he was going to build.
Okay, so you're not going to name him, you're just going to say, the most famous British Columbia businessman. The richest British Columbians and their net worth. Alright, well, you know, if he's going to be a dick about it, the 12 richest people. 12 richest people in British Columbia, their net worth and how they made their money. Alright. You, Gary Charlwood, at $1.03 billion, is a businessman and philanthropist known authority on franchising and entrepreneurship. According to Canadian Business, he has an estimated net worth of 1.03 billion Canadian dollars. Born in Germany in 1941, he moved to London in 1948. Oh, he's an immigrant. Ugh. And attended University of Southampton on a scholarship before turning his summer job as a tour guide into a full-fledged career in the travel industry. In 1966, came to Canada to work for Western Airlines, now Delta, and quickly moved up and eventually became the Director of Consumer Affairs for CP Air, now Air Canada. Oh, okay. Caleb and Tom Chan, $1.07 billion. Caleb and Tom Chan are businessmen and philanthropists who have fortunes primarily linked to real estate. Oh, the housing bubble. According to blah, 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 the brothers were both born in Hong Kong. In 1989, they settled in Vancouver with their father, Chan Shun, the founder of Crocodile Garments Ltd., a Hong Kong textile and garment company which was later sold to Hong Kong tycoon Lim Por Yen. Oh, more immigrants? Oh, dear. Caleb received a bachelor's degree in business administration from UC Berkeley and an MBA from the University of San Francisco. Tom received a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture from UC Berkeley and 2 honorary degrees for a Doctor of Law from Southwestern Adventist University and a Doctor of Letters from University of British Columbia. The brothers entered the world of real estate development. Oh, goodness gracious me. Real estate development, you say? I'm shocked. All right, Hassan. 1.16. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Koswarshahai? I don't know. Business, investor, philanthropist, according to blah, 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 born in Tehran, Iran in 1940 to a wealthy family. His father, Ali, founded the Minu Industrial Group, a big player in manufacturing and distribution of food products, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics. In 1961, Hassan joined the family business. By 1979, due to the Iranian Revolution, the industrial group was nationalized, and by 1981, the family had chosen to settle in Vancouver. Oh. He founded Inwest Investments Ltd., which is now part of Pyrasis Holdings Ltd., and is a family holding company. Its subsidiary Future Shops by 1996. Future Shops was the largest computer and electronics retailer in Canada. In 2001, the company was acquired by Best Buy. Goodness gracious me. All right, Frank. $1.2 billion. Frank is a businessman, mining financier, philanthropist, and founder of Lionsgate Entertainment. According to Celebrity Net Worth, he has an estimated net worth of USD $1 billion or 1.2 billion Canadian. Born in 1957 in Sudbury, Ontario. Hey, this is the first person who hasn't immigrated to Canada. Neato Burrito. It's definitely his parents were fucking not born here. Nickel miner, 1978, hired by blah blah assistant trader, blah 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 blah. President in where he became president in 1990 and chairman. Oh, family business. Oh goodness, family business in mining. Oh dear. Endeavor Financial, a merchant bank that finances mining companies before stepping down to focus on more philanthropy. All right, Brandt, 1.57 billion. An accountant businessman, according to Forbes, blah, blah, blah. Born in 1943. Man, the age of these guys is all weird that they're kind of all in the same boomer bubble or something like that. Weird. I wonder why. I wonder what that's about. Born in Vancouver, British Columbia. Commerce. Grandfather immigrated to Vancouver from China in 1896. In 1972, after having worked as a chartered accountant for years, he decided to join the family business. Oh, man. Family business. Family business. Carl, at 2.18 billion, co-founder and CEO of Abcelera Therapeutics. Graduated from the University of British Columbia. In 2012, he founded a therapeutic company which uses a combination of machine learning and proprietary hardware to identify promising antibodies, which are then used to develop treatments for infectious disease and cancer. The underlying technology is based on research Hassan pursued while a professor at the University of British Columbia, in a position he held until 2019. Interesting that this guy's age isn't put in here for some reason. It's almost like he's part of the AI bubble or something. Oh, funny thing that. The Lalji family, $3.07 billion, are business people investors with fortunes primarily linked to hotel ownership and real estate development. Oh, weird. All right. The Aquilini family, $3.3 billion. A fortune that is primarily linked to agriculture and real estate. All right, Bob, $3.51 billion. A real estate tycoon. Oh, okay, imagine that. Chip Wilson, $5.92 billion. Chip Wilson is a businessman, founder of many retail apparel companies. Lululemon. Born in San Diego, California in 1955. Anthony, $10.53 billion, a businessman leading figure in the alcohol sector. Born in Vancouver to European parents. Graduated with a degree of economics in the early 1970s, if you want a rough estimation of how old this person is. When he was 31, he had saved up enough money to invest in his first vineyard, mostly through his importing business. Number 1, Jim Pattison. Whatever. $11.62 billion. An investor, businessman, estimated net worth, $11.62 billion Canadian. Sometimes dubbed the Canadian Warren Buffett, he is the head of an empire that operates in some 85 countries, spanning an array of industries such as supermarkets, lumber, fishery, disposable packaging, theme parks, auto dealers, and more. Born in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in 1928. Well, there you go. So, probably one of these chuckle fucks. So, you know, fuck you. Fuck you is what I have to say about that. Fuck you. Bye. I'm done. We're outie. That's enough of that. Go on with whatever stupid shit you were saying.
A strip mall not a strip mall, a shopping center in British Columbia and one in Texas at the same time. And he said in Texas, they had permits in 7 weeks. In Canada, it took 7 years.
Yeah, and why does Canada want to be like Texas? Why does British Columbia want to be like Texas? Do you have any idea about, like, how fucking the expenses and how cramped British Columbia is, let alone the Rocky Mountains and maintaining whatever? Who cares about municipalities? The federal government should just come in and stomp on all the locals and tell them to go fuck themselves.
And exactly the same specs. There was no environmental problems on either side of the border. But he said he flew down to Texas. I think he was greeted by the mayor of the town, who said, you know, what do we need to do? They opened up the blueprint, got him the permit. 7 weeks he was off swinging hammers and turning sod. And here in British Columbia, it was 7 years. So it's not hard.
All right, so I guess go looking for somebody who built a mall in Texas.
Hard to imagine why $1 trillion is.
Should I go find it? British Columbia, rich guy who built a mall in Texas. Strip malls are so dead in my area. So according to the Vancouver Sun, there's somebody named Douglas Todd, billionaire owner of 3 BC malls, bears soul on China scandals and her horrific upbringing. Well, it can't be her. This is a woman. Dubbed the wealth, and we know Pierre Poilievre doesn't care about women. Anyway,
left when
that seems like an interesting story. So we'll look at that one later, maybe another date.
You can't get things built in Canada. We got to get the government out of the way and let builders build.
If you became prime minister, how long do you think it would take?
He's shitting on the municipality, by the way. That he's presenting this as if it's shitting on the federal government. It's not. He's just saying that that local municipalities need to fuck off and let businesses stomp all over their city.
For young Canadians before they could realistically start entering the housing market again.
Oh, you're right, Atlantic. Yeah, initially I'd said this was a conversation he had with a shampoo bottle in his shower, but yeah, we did take him as if he's telling the truth.
I think within a term in office, it's reasonable and realistic to expect that home ownership would normalize again for young people. That's the way
never mind.
It was before this government, right? It was absolutely normal for people in their mid-20s to make down payments and own homes. And it was absolutely normal to have mortgages completely paid off by the time.
No, how old do you think millennials are, Pierre? We're in our we're turning 40. The oldest of us are in our 40s, my guy. 20 years ago, when your guy was getting out of office and we were getting Trudeau into office, this was still a problem. That was when we were in our 20s.
And people were in their early 40s. That was normal. Now, it takes longer to get a down payment than it used to take to pay off the whole mortgage. So we have no excuse for expensive housing. Like if we lived in Hong Kong or Singapore,
the housing crisis is a global issue, not just an issue that's happening in Canada.
You say, look, there's just no land. Where do you want us to build?
Look at Toronto. Why do you think Toronto housing is so expensive?
But in Canada, we have nothing but land. Like we have more land per capita than...
You can't just build infrastructure anywhere in Canada. The Canadian Shield exists. It makes building the infrastructure lines incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive.
Any other developed country in the world, and much of it within 100 kilometers of the U.S. border where our population is congregated, and much of it around big cities. Even when you drive around big cities, you see tremendous amounts of unused brown land with tumbleweed. It's not ecologically special. It's just sitting there waiting for a permit or a zoning change.
I don't want Pierre Poilievre to stop talking about local ecology.
And so if we could, and we've got hundreds of thousands of...
We saw what his predecessor did, and the guy he worked under, the guy where he was the housing minister, the person who could have affected and done a lot about housing being affordable back during the 2008 financial crisis and roughly before this government, which he's citing as 10 years, but it's a little bit longer than that. Like...
federal acres of land that, again, are not ecologically sensitive, that are just sitting around doing nothing because it's next to impossible for business to get...
Yeah, listen, he's just gonna set up a bunch of houses in the middle of butt-fucking nowhere, and if you build it, they will come, because, who cares about infrastructure, who cares about businesses, and, like, needing to be able to have a job, to be able to afford anything.
Get in and start building there. So if we could unlock that land, then we can unlock home ownership for our young people.
Can we get a stream of Pierre Poilievre playing City Simulate, like the Sim City? Because it would be really funny.
Piece to this home ownership, and I just interviewed Lyman Stone, who's a demographer focused on why the West is having less children, broadly speaking, why they're getting married less. And one of the key pieces he pointed out was when you have public parks, but when you don't have a police presence, people aren't willing to...
Huh? I have something on Debate Hub that's about to start? It's not supposed to be. Did I put the time in wrong on something? Let me go check. Let me double check. Stuff is Debate Hub isn't supposed to be until... There's a video that's coming out soon, not a stream. The Debate Hub stream isn't until 5. There should be a video coming out. That's not supposed to start until 5. My bad. Let me fix that. Thank you for letting me know. That's supposed to happen at 5 p.m., not 2. Let me just fix that real quick. My bad. Oops. No, it says 15. That's still wrong. It should be, wait, 4, that's 3, 4, 5 is 17. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm so fucking dumb. It had a 5 in it, guys. It counts. That's so funny. All right.
You see those parks as useful because they don't feel like they could bring their children there, and that he's seeing that across Canada.
I like how conservatives think that just spamming something makes them smart. It's funny.
That because parks are being used by people who are homeless and addiction, that people aren't able to build that same sense of community. How would you go about addressing that so young people can start to build families?
Oh no, guys. Jackson is really upset about basic language. Oh no. Oh no, are you mad about terminology? Are you mad? Why are you so mad? Why are you so mad, Jackson? What are you so mad about? You don't like change? What's upsetting you? What's got your goat, Jackson? What's got your goat there, bud? What are you so mad about? Why are you so upset? It's okay, we can talk about it.
Well, I drove through East Hastings on the way here, and it's incredible how much misery and suffering goes on in those places. And yes, in some cases, that misery.
With this footage, I would like to remind you that Pierre Poilievre has voted against affordable housing nearly his entire career in Parliament. So, thanks, Poilievre.
Has made its way into playgrounds and parks. There are, parks in places like Nanaimo and in Toronto where they've been taken over by homeless encampments, and almost as you drive down the street, you can see very clearly what's going on. It's fentanyl.
It's not affordable housing, guys. Guys, you do know what people who don't have houses need? Houses. They need houses. There's also incredibly successful safe injection what was it called? It was like a whole housing zone that they had set up in British Columbia that was incredibly successful.
So it's drugs, and the entire approach to drugs of the last 15 years.
Did you know that you could be a drug addict and be in a house? Did you know that you could do that? You could be a drug addict and be in a house. You can do that.
By the Liberal and NDP governments.
Letty in the chat said, "Oh no, so difficult to say parenting partner and birthing person. So scary. Oh my god, the agenda of teaching kids multiple syllable words. Everyone will die. Ah! Everybody panic!"
Has been
so scary.
Ineffective. It has been almost seemingly deliberately counterproductive. Like they're
what are you talking about?
Harder for people to get off drugs and easier for them to get on it.
Who's they?
I would say this is a top-down government-created problem. I met a
young man
here in British Columbia who had beat his drug addiction, and then he had become homeless for unrelated reasons. He went into...
Oh, so you were bringing up an analogy or an example or an experience you had, saying that it wasn't a drug-related problem that this person ended up homeless after you just said the reason everybody was homeless is fentanyl? You literally just said that the reason this homelessness issue is an issue is because of fentanyl. You said it's fentanyl. And now you're going to tell me a story about how somebody beat their drug addiction, became homeless for unrelated reasons. So it wasn't the fentanyl that made them homeless? It wasn't the drug addiction? Thanks for proving me right, I guess.
A government hotel the government had rented for homeless people, and within a few minutes he had a knock on the door from a drug dealer, and there he was restarted again on his drug addiction. So he was
restarted again on his drug. Please tell me you don't understand anything about mental health and addiction without telling me you don't understand anything about mental health and addiction. That's not how any of that works.
Government housing, he got back on drugs and his life went backwards. They've been giving out...
And that's Mark Carney's fault. What a dick.
hydromorphone and other so-called safe forms of opioids that addicts then sell to kids in order to be able to buy fentanyl and other harder drugs. They've effectively legalized possession, which means police can't stop someone from carrying around deadly doses of fentanyl. And all of that has given us among the biggest drug overdose crises anywhere in the developed world. I would reverse all of that.
This man literally doesn't fucking... So you'd rather that guy be homeless that you were talking about. You'd rather that guy just be homeless and not have anywhere to go. That's what you just said. Because he would just reverse it all. Okay.
I would bring in a hard ban on fentanyl, meth, heroin, cocaine, crack, where...
Oh my fucking god. Unbelievable, this man. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you think meth is legal? Is that what you're suggesting? That there's been some change to the government that says...
with the capacity for police to arrest
this
people
is so
for
stupid.
Possession and for judges to sentence them to treatment.
He's talking about the difference between decriminalization and something being illegal or legal. Because this is the Nuanced podcast that they're on. They're having zero nuance, of course, naturally.
And recovery. I would bring in mandatory treatment and recovery and drug testing in our prisons and make it a condition of release, of earned release, that people whose crimes are linked to addiction actually have to become drug-free in order to get...
I'm sorry, are you suggesting people are getting access to these drugs illegally in prison? This man is crazy! I do not know what world fucking Pierre Poilievre lives in, but holy shit. Oh my god. Why aren't things improving? I keep hitting people, but they keep doing bad things. I know, right? Oh my god.
Released from prison, I would replace all these consumption...
Yeah, good question. What is a hard ban? Let's pull this up. World data, drug use disorders in 2023. Estimated annual numbers of deaths from drug use disorders. This includes opioids, cocaine, this is methamphetamine, and cannabis. Figures do not include suicide deaths, which may otherwise be related to drug disorders. Alright, so let's take a look. Greenland up here with 0 to 100. Mexico's in the 300 to 1,000. Australia and Brazil in 1,000 to 300. That also looks like France up there as well. Canada's in the 3,000 to 10,000 range, along with China. Russia, up here with its 10,000 to 30,000. And the United States alone, by its lonesome, over at 30,000 to 100,000. So, I guess we are not the worst in the world. Gosh darn. Canada is sitting at 6.06K, whereas the United States is sitting at 95.33K, 33,000. 95, it's right here, 95,000, 6,000. Don't get me wrong, it's higher than it should be, but you want to know why part of this is higher than it should be? And why? Where's the fentanyl coming from, guys? Is it from the United States? It's from the United States.
Sites with treatment centers, with the goal being abstinence, getting people completely off drugs. Now, you might say,
"Oh my fucking god, we know that prohibition doesn't work and doesn't help." This is like saying, well, if we don't allow abortions, then abortions won't happen. No, they're still gonna happen. They're just gonna happen more unsafely and probably more often. And you're just gonna have more death happening. It's not preventative. Prohibition is not preventative. Abstinence is not a fucking way to educate people or prevent these problems or deal with these problems once they exist. Because guess what abstinence does? Doesn't deal with the problem once the problem already exists. What are you gonna do? Tell somebody who's already addicted to drugs and homeless, well, just stop doing drugs and then nothing else? Are you stupid? Yes, what am I saying? You're stupid. Why am I even asking this?
Is that really such a revolutionary policy? Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
No, it's not. It's been done in the past and it doesn't work, which is why we don't do it anymore. Dipshit.
Yes. Right now, it is not the stated policy of many public health agencies to get people off drugs.
Say no to drugs. You guys remember the war on drugs? We're just gonna bring that back. Let's roll it back to the war on drugs. Let's do the war on drugs in Canada, guys. It works so well in the United States.
It is to keep them using drugs in a way the government considers to be safe. Like, if you ask...
That is one step of a program. Getting people safe and not treating people like criminals when they have a medical problem is generally a healthier way to actually deal with the problem. You don't want to actually deal with the problem. You want the problem to just pretend it doesn't exist and go away. Nothing you're saying is actually helpful.
Ask a lot of public health officials, they will tell you that their goal is not to get people off drugs. It's to continue their drug habit in a healthier way. But there is no health.
It's to make it so that a person's make or break existence in society is not so reliant on whether or not they are doing a drug that they should or should not be doing. Right? Whether or not you're addicted to drugs is irrelevant and should be irrelevant to whether or not you have a roof over your head. You should be able to have a roof over your head whether or not you are addicted to a drug. You should not be punished for suffering from an affliction like addiction. You should not be pushed to the dregs of society and treated like not a human being and treated badly. And in fact, if you want to help somebody be off drugs and not do drugs anymore, you want to know what's not going to help? Isolating them and making them homeless and making it so that they are treated like pariahs So getting them off drugs is not the priority. The priority is getting them into a safe and stable place. Because it's really, really hard to deal with an addiction while you're in an unstable place. Like the allegory you just brought up with that person you talked to who got out of their drug addiction, then became homeless, and then ended up using drugs again. It's almost like if they had a home, they might have had less opportunity or been less in a hard space that put them in a position to be doing drugs again. So them getting off drugs is secondary to getting them a house. You fucking asshole. You unempathetic piece of shit. God, you're such a garbage person.
The way to addiction with these drugs. There is no healthy future. You're playing Russian roulette. You're going to die.
No! Wrong! Incorrect! One of the reasons why people die from addiction so often and so much is because the places that you're doing drugs and the drugs you're getting are unsafe to begin with. So if we eliminate that risk, the death toll goes down. And then you can slowly work somebody off of their drug addiction, which makes them less likely to die from that addiction. And from the process of getting out of that addiction. Hey, guess what? If you smoke cigarettes your entire life and you're addicted to cigarettes your entire life and you live to 80 and then get lung cancer at 80, so the fuck what? Should you be homeless and treated like shit? Will you be less likely or more likely to live to be 80 while you're addicted to cigarettes? Drift, hey. What misinformation? What misinformation? I dare you.
If you keep using these things. And the problem is that we have not been willing to tell the truth. The only way to save someone's life from a fentanyl addiction is to get them off fentanyl for good and not to replace it with...
Okay, but that has nothing to do with whether or not they ought to be homeless during that process. Dipshit. The process isn't cold turkey for everybody. That doesn't work. That's not helpful. Isolating them out of society, also not helpful.
With another opioid, but to get them off the drug altogether. And it's possible. There are incredible treatment facilities across this country.
That's the end goal, not the first step. You're treating the end goal as if it is the first step, as if, well, just don't be addicted anymore. Okay, thanks. Hey, look, I'm gonna cure your depression. Stop being sad. That's not how any of this shit works. And it's infuriating, because this kind of rhetoric is the shit that gets people killed. People are dying because of these kinds of policies. And people have died in the past due to these kinds of policies. And yes, Feline, you're 100% correct. Cold turkey is often more dangerous, especially with something like fentanyl.
That operate on the goal of abstinence, and it works. They get on their feet, they get jobs, they support their communities, and they're better. And that would bring safety to the parks that you're asking about.
A lot.
Wrong. Incorrect. You've jumped from one thing to another thing. The people who are in the parks are people who are homeless. If you are assuming that homeless people are unsafe to be around and you don't want them in your park, then get them homes. Period. End of sentence. If you can't get them homes and you don't want homeless people to become dangerous because you're just assuming they are, which is wrong and incorrect, and a bad point of view because you're treating them like they're not people. You want to know why homeless people tend to be dangerous? Because they have no home. They lack resources. And so they fight over these resources. And they fight for those resources. If you want homeless people to be less dangerous, give them the fucking resources. People get aggressive. Humans get aggressive when they are desperate. Not because they want to be. It's people like Pierre Poilievre who are actually dangerous people. And are people who are getting other people killed. Intentionally.
There. First, I'll say I worked as a Native court worker for 5 years, trying to support people through those circumstances. And the big takeaway I had was I was in a revolving door system, which is the whole reason I went to law school, ran for counsel, ran for chief, was because I wasn't able to address any of these deep problems. And the only other person...
Yeah, correct. These problems are complicated and there's a lot to them. If you want less homeless people, give them fucking houses. Universal basic income would probably solve the majority of what you're bitching about right now, but you won't do that. There's too much math involved that works out real good.
I wanted to mention was Alia Warbus, who's serving as a Conservative MLA here in British Columbia. She had shared a harrowing story where she was in Alberta struggling with drug use, and the hospital was mandated to keep her there until she was clean and off of those drugs. And she had said had she been in British Columbia, she would have likely died because they would have just let her out before she had become clean and likely gone back to using. And so these policies...
Hypothetically, maybe this would have been the case. I don't know, though.
On a really deep level, impact whether or not people live, but also whether or not we see the greatest gifts of our population. And the idea that the kind thing to do to people is to let them live on the streets, I think is just such a tragic, mean mindset to do to people, because they don't want to be there. I've never met a homeless person or a person in addiction who wants to be in that circumstance and just wants it to be normalized so that they can continue. They have harrowing stories of not being able to see their children.
Conflating the word normalize in this way is, what's the word I'm looking for? Atrocious. An atrocious...
Not being able to have the career that they thought they had. And I often, in my community, think about how I've been given this immense privilege to try and support that, because so many people get stuck because of where they were born, who they were born to, and not being able to share their gifts.
Okay, so cool. So how does telling people don't do drugs, prohibition only, with heavier police enforcement going to help these people, Mr. Lawyer Man? How is increasing police regulation and policing going to help? How does that help those people? Sending those people to jail and giving them criminal records help them get their career back and get their life back on track? How does that help? Explain. Tell Elmo.
Their identity, who they want to become. Like in First Nation communities, the odds you're going to have a next door neighbor that's a doctor, lawyer, judge is so unlikely that you can't even aspire to those types of jobs. And that's why we need to address so many of these issues.
That's a whole other can of worms that he just brought up.
On the Indigenous file, I know that you're here in part to talk about private property rights. You've spoken before about private property rights and protections for Canadians from government overreach. With the Cowichan decision in British Columbia and now the Wolastoqey in New Brunswick, sorry, I'm not from that territory, I don't know that word very well, courts are now wrestling with whether Aboriginal title can coexist with privately held fee simple land. What is your position?
My position is that fee simple must take priority. Once it is granted, then it must be final. And I believe that the government...
To the surprise of no one, he is against the Native American people. He's against First Nations. Short answer.
Canada needs to argue in the fourth...
That's the first one he's actually answered directly, by the way.
Appeal of the Cowichan decision in favor of the principle of extinguishment, which is that fee simple title extinguishes all other claims on a piece of land. The problem with the contrary approach, which is what the court found, is that it puts in risk the title of, at first, 800 acres of land in Richmond, British Columbia, worth $1 billion. But if the precedence applies, then it could put into risk basically all the home ownership in the province of British Columbia, because other tribes could simply say, well, there's now a precedent that the Cowichan at Aboriginal title supersedes the private property rights of Richmond residents, well, then the claims across the Lower Mainland, which are overlapping and numerous, could do exactly the same thing. So then you could have literally millions of British Columbians dispossessed of homes that they legitimately bought. They paid they paid extraordinary amounts of money because, of course, it's the most expensive real estate market in North America. So imagine you bought a $1.2 million house with a $1 million mortgage, and you and your wife are working nonstop to pay down that mortgage. And someone comes along and says, this property might not be yours. You still have the mortgage, by the way. I don't know how you're going to pay that off. I think this risks bringing absolute economic chaos to.
I think his example is nonsense. This isn't like really arguing with like an individual family. This is an argument about corporate bros, not really about just one person buying a house on land. That's not really what it's about. So, and you say that as if those people wouldn't get their money reimbursed, as if there would be, you would just have that land stolen. You mean you don't like this land getting stolen from you? Fucking dipshit. Where is this hypothetical even possible? Yeah, exactly. I don't fucking know. Alright, I'm done. I'm done. This man is starting to like, his fucking nonsense is starting to go over my head. I'm gonna go get in touch with Chris Shelton and make sure when the fuck we're supposed to be live, and make sure I didn't fuck that up. Because maybe I just got that all wrong. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna send him a message. So we might be live over on Debate Hub momentarily. And I gotta pee. So we'll finish this later, I guess. We're at 53 minutes out of an hour. Can we be done? Can we be done with this? You want me to show a picture? Okay, hold on. Hold on. Memes. Fucking... Which one? Which picture? The Dutch American one? This one? Is it gonna download? Oh, okay, good. This one? This one you're talking about? Yeah, we'll just leave this up, I guess. I don't know, it's kinda cut off. The fuck did you just say, Denmark? Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, we'll put this up. There you go. Okay, bye.